Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. This is the Maverick News Channel. You're watching the Freedom Reporters.
And hello, I am your co-host, Brendan Kennedy. Good evening. I hope everybody is doing well. Happy Friday. How are you today, Rick Walker?
I'm okay. But you know, Brendan, it is April the 8th, 2022, just after 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the country, the United States and Canada, both in a sad state. Western civilization is in a sad state. And the stories today reflect that state, the top news stories of the day. We have, the headline today for today's show is Debt and Disease.
And it's all in the name of diversity and inclusivity and making sure your feelings aren't hurt. And
at least we're all in it together, and at least we're still laughing about it. But my God, I went through all the stuff today, and over the last hour we were putting the headlines together for today, and I was like, well, what are we going to talk about? Like, what's today's top story? What's the headline going to be? Debt and disease. We have a federal government in Canada that just passed a new budget. Housing prices are out of control. We have massive inflation. We have homes that just a few years ago were selling for, say, $360,000. Today, in some markets, they're selling for $1 million. Yeah. So some people, I guess, have cashed in on that, but really it's all relative. So if you sell your house, but you still need a place to live, it costs you that much to live. So you're no further ahead, even though unless you have multiple properties and you sell some off but they're going to tax you to death on that capital gain. And then the government plan to remedy this is to spend more money. And we have, so today the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and the Deputy Prime Minister, who is also the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, they held a news conference. So we're going to go to that and show you what they had to say about their plan to deal with the housing crisis in Canada. And the other solution to the problem is to make more of the problem, which is to bring in more immigrants. The main reason the housing prices are off the chart is because of massive immigration. We had a record level of immigration. Not since 1913 have we had immigration. In 2021 was over 400. I think it was actually the real number was somewhere around 405,000 new Canadians in 2021. And that number it was a record. And nothing even close since 1913. And I think we're on track for a new record this year. That is, as I said, 2 cities the size of Windsor. And the government spend. We're going to get into all of that. What else is going on today? The Whitmer kidnapping plot in the U.S. in Michigan, 2 of the suspects acquitted. Am I surprised? No. Well, mildly surprised maybe, because I don't have a lot of faith in the justice system in either Canada or the U.S. But 2 people acquitted, and we know from the research that was done into the background of that case that we had. What did we have down there? We had federal agents implanted with this group, and it appears that they may have been egging them on, encouraging them to commit a crime. And does the word entrapment mean anything to you?
And this. I have brought the specific case up in Canada where they had taken a Muslim man, and it was the same spiel. And this was in the 2000s, and it turned out that the RCMP ended up being behind the whole entire operation. And when it went to acquittal, the judge threw it in the garbage because it didn't stand the test of time. I think the very fact that the governments are this involved in spinning the narratives is absolutely ridiculous. And not only do we look at this and then we see a direct attack on the government to its own citizens, it falls into line with this strange narrative that Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau have spun. And there's a pattern there, because both countries are trying to say white supremacists are trying to take over the country and they want to throw your democracy in the garbage, which is far from what the actual truth is. And I think this shows us a little bit.
We have other stories today, too, we're going to touch on. Mm-hmm. Alberta's top doctor, Dina Hinshaw, still being grilled in court because of the there's a court case going on there, right? Yep. We touched on this, and the court case involves, and we're not going to get too deep into it, only touch on it a little bit today, but it's very interesting because the good doctor who imposed all these pandemic measures to keep everybody safe, she's basically being put on trial within this trial. And so the COVID measures are being put on trial as a result. And these lawyers from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms in Canada, I guess, are doing a pretty good job of making their case. And I think they're embarrassing Alberta's top doctor just a little bit.
Yeah, and she seems like a very frail woman, to say the least, and she's always dragged me nuts. One story that we're going to bring up here today, too, is, and this is maybe a good news story. So The Atlantic held a conference on mis- and disinformation, and one of the participants was a snappy young college kid, and he rips Brian Stelter of CNN, a new one entirely. And the media has paid some attention to this, at least conservative media has, but they haven't paid attention to how bad Brian Stelter's response was, where he's basically flopping around on the stage like a fish. So I think that's worth looking at, too.
Well, I think it's worth looking at just because so much of what we see in the media these days is such crap.
Yes.
Whether it's the way they reported on this kidnapping plot in Michigan or even the January 6th thing. Sorry, but I just don't buy into it the way that they portray it, or whether it's the mostly peaceful BLM protests or the complete absolute lies that we've seen out of the convoy coverage. And then today we see Jean Charest, big politician, big Canadian politician, liberal, but is running for the leadership of the Conservative Party, because the guy through his career has flip-flopped between the two parties. And he is criticizing one of his key opponents for the leadership, Pierre Poilievre, saying that criticizing him for supporting the truckers. And or what other crazy, stupid stories have we seen? I mean, there were just outright lies in the way that they covered the Ottawa convoy. Mm-hmm. Now we're seeing, too, that people who had their bank accounts frozen And if they were hurt financially, they may be compensated now because the government clearly is admitting that through that they made some missteps there by targeting people who didn't deserve to be targeted, but only to a point.
Yeah.
Only to a point. They still are working to make an example out of anyone that opposes them. And that's what all of this stuff really is about, which is what Bill 100 in the Ontario legislature is about. It's about shutting down any other protests that might come forward. Shut down all those trucker convoys before they ever have a chance to get started. Don't even think about it. We're going to shut you down. We'll confiscate your vehicle, take away your license, no due process, guilty until proven innocent. It's just every time you turn around, everything they cover anymore, man, it's just all upside down coverage, backwards, and it's a big freaking lie.
Absolutely. And well, at least for me, that is kind of a part of the fun, is when you look at a story. I know some people, they look at these stories and it makes them sick to their stomach. We see the comments on here all the time. If we're playing like a press conference or something, some of our viewers will say, "Oh, I'm going to go get my barf bucket." But it is a cat and mouse game. They're trying to fool you. And we have the tools and we have the power to think critically and analyze these situations and break them down and make sense of this crazy world. And I would pretty much, that's like our little hobby here almost.
Yeah. Deb Wirtz is commenting here saying, true to form, Freeland. Oh, sorry. That was, she was dressed in blue and yellow on budget day to honor Ukraine. Makes sense seeing our money is going. Yeah. Spend. Lots of money. Just
for her.
There it goes.
For her
Doug
to.
Ford. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Just going to mention that for her to say that their government needs to be fiscally responsible in the House of Commons yesterday was an assault on the senses, 100%.
Yeah. I want to get into this discussion in detail, a little more detail another night, but about realists and the way realism is part of a political ideology and how liberals and socialists don't subscribe to it. So reality doesn't come into the picture for them. So for them to just say something makes it so. For them to just, if they want something, they just think they can scribble it on a piece of paper, through a piece of legislation, make a law or a mandate, and just make it so. They think they can make a virus go away by making a bunch of rules. They think they can make the economy respond just by doing this and by talking and saying something. If they say it, they think it makes it so. But I was at the grocery store today, and there were huge expanses of empty shelves. The supply chain is broken. The economy is not in good shape. That's what I'm getting at, right? The country, Canada and the US, the West, we're in trouble. And people don't even in the face of all this, people still are not getting it. They're like, we've never had to deal with true adversity here in the way that some other countries have had to, at least not since the Great Depression. And I didn't live through that, so I can't fully relate to it. But I do know that we've taken freedom for granted. We've taken our prosperity for granted. We've taken our culture, our language, our history for granted. And we're letting these irresponsible, young, snot-nosed kids run our damn country straight into the ground, because that's what they are. They're a bunch of spoiled, rotten little brats who were born with silver spoons in their mouths, and they think that they talk about privilege. You look at Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, and the Liberal Party in general, and these NDP socialists like Jagmeet Singh and his Rolex watches and his fancy BMW cars and his big fat frickin' paycheck. These are the people of privilege. These are the elites. And they have nothing but contempt for the regular people. They don't give a damn if there are shortages at the local grocery store. They don't care about the guy who invested in that store, because he's a local business person, I know. He has a franchise, but he can't stock his shelves properly. You think that's not having an impact on his business? They don't care about the people who are locked down. They don't care about the people whose businesses suffered through the pandemic. They don't care about the people who lost their businesses. And they gave you a CERB, but now you have to pay it back because you're just a little guy. But when they give the money to the big guys, they don't have to pay it back. And maybe that sounds like I'm a socialist, but it's not about being a socialist. It's about being fair.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about equity. I'm just talking about plain, straight fairness. And here's the big lie from them. And this is part of their big lie in this stupid budget that they've brought down. They're the ones who profit. They always talk about socialism being like everybody ends up equal. That's equity. Everyone has the same outcome. BS. They sit up there in their ivory tower, drive around in their fancy sports cars. Do you know how much Justin Trudeau has a Mercedes-Benz that's worth, I don't know how many millions, at least a couple of $1 million, I think at this point is what that thing is worth. And it just sits in storage. It was his daddy's. I've seen the car. The guy is just filthy, left with a trust fund. You think he can relate to you? And he talks about he was going to help the middle class. He's gutted the middle class. We're going to get into more of this stuff. I'm just telling you, man, these guys don't care about us. They don't care about you folks. They don't care about Canadians. No, they don't. And they don't care about the country. And that's the other thing. There are now calls to start calling out and even doxing, if you will, members of the WEF, the World Economic Forum. And I'm all for it because we need to know who they are. Because if they are members of the WEF, if they went through the program for young global leaders, as we know Chrystia Freeland did because she even sits on their board.
Yeah.
She's one of their top members. She's got a major conflict of interest. If you're a member of the WEF, you are a globalist. You are not fit to govern in Canada or the United States. You need to be run out of office because you don't have the best interests of Canadians, U.S. citizens at heart. You don't. Because you have taken a pledge of allegiance to the WEF. And that makes you a globalist. And I will go a step further and say that the WEF is a fascist organization. They're absolutely a fascist organization, subscribed to fascist economic policies and fascist political policies, socioeconomic policies. They are not free market. If you think that because it says economic in it, that it's something to do with free market, it's got nothing to do with the free market. The absolute opposite. It's all about government control, and it's about a one world government controlling everything. And Chrystia Freeland and Trudeau are members. So too are many people in the U.S. government. It's been infiltrated.
It's very concerning. And we're seeing all these policies leak out that the WEF has talked about like 2 years ago, and now they're showing up all over the place. It's a real cause for concern. And you know what? I'll take it a step further than that. I would also be, as far as I'm concerned, it worries me when there's even politicians who are dual citizens. And Andrew Scheer had a big problem with this because Andrew Scheer, a few years ago, the ex-leader for the Conservative Party of Canada, he crapped all over somebody for being a dual citizen. But meanwhile, it came out just before the last election, before the election when he got canned, that he was himself a dual citizen. How much interest does somebody have in your country if they could just pick up and leave?
Well, Honeycomb says, I absolutely agree, Rick, but what can we do to get rid of them? The first thing we can do is start identifying who they are. And as far as I'm concerned, if they're a member, if they've been through that program, they're disqualified as far as I'm concerned right off the bat, because they have a conflict of interest. And as I say, when they go through that program for young global leaders, and when they become a member of the WEF, they take a pledge of allegiance to that organization, not to the country that they represent. So I'm telling you, man, we are in deep trouble and we are running out of time. The country's already gone, but now it's now they're like finishing the job.
Yeah.
And they do all these things and they go through the motions and they pretend like as though they're trying to do something to help people all the time. And yet if you really look at the outcome that they're getting, look at where we're at, folks. What did I just see today when I went to the grocery store? Empty shelves? Can you think of a time ever in your life when we've experienced these kinds of problems to this level? And it just keeps getting worse. And they sit there now and through this with this budget that they just passed in Canada, and what Biden is doing, he's doing the same thing. Gas prices, blame it on Putin. Inflation, blame it on the pandemic. No, they're incompetent or they're intentionally destroying the economy. Mm-hmm. I think probably the latter. They've been doing it intentionally. They've been tearing it all down, burning it to the ground to take things away from people so that they can build back better. And then when you get some little bit of relief, which is like a government handout, because you're hurting so much and so many people are hurting so much that you sit there and you go, thank you so much for the crumbs. Yeah. Well, they drive around in their fancy sports cars that you won't be able to afford because they're all going to be electric and they're going to be way too expensive. And most people will not be able to afford to buy them and they're not going to last. You're not going to be able, I can get into this crap again too. Plus, I just read a thing and I didn't mention it the other day, but there's a group of auto manufacturers and they're putting pressure on the government now to increase the subsidies to buy new electric cars from an average in, say, Canada of about $5,000 to $15,000. 15 grand. And to increase the amounts because people need to be buying like more expensive pickup trucks, and these cars are going to, they're in the $100,000, $110,000 range. So they want to increase the limit for how much the price of a vehicle that would still qualify for a subsidy. So I'm telling, like, $15,000 kickback to anybody buying a new electric car. For every new electric car, then 15 grand. Can we afford that? Those cars are already subsidized out the wazoo, all the way down the production line. And then at the end, they want to give everybody basically, here's 15 grand. Well, where does the car companies are all for it, of course, because where does the money go? It goes straight into the car companies, right? So that's like a big handout to the car companies, really.
And then there's more handouts to upgrade your charging station in your house to be eligible for fast charge, and like the list goes on and on and on and on about the stuff the government pays for.
For crying out loud, like where's all this money coming from? They're just printing the crap out of money. That's what it is. It's all fake. It's all freaking fake. And it works for a little while because it just puts artificial money fake money out there and people sit there and it does create some economic velocity. But at a certain point, you don't get a corresponding amount of productivity, and it devalues because it also devalues the currency because there's more currency out there. So it becomes a tax on you and I. So your savings go right out the window. So now your money's not worth anything and everything becomes more expensive. This can't work.
It won't work.
It will not. It will collapse. I don't know when, but when it does, and it will be, the next one will be so massive. It's going to be so bad. It'll be something the world has never seen or experienced before, ever. I think it could plunge us into the dark ages, man. The only thing that could possibly save us is maybe technology to like ramp up productivity to help get us out of this. But I don't know. I just know that you can't defy the laws of nature forever. You can do it for a little while, but eventually nature catches up, and economics.
What goes up must come down.
That's right. Economics is not an artificial thing. The economy is an organic, living, breathing, real thing.
Now, that is also interesting. Like a lot of anti-government individuals or people who are fed up with the government. I wouldn't say anti-government. I retract that. A lot of people who are want to be outside of the system are all about Bitcoin, but I'm starting to feel suspicious about Bitcoin in the sense that it could be something ultimately taken over by government and used by government. If not taken over, it could, in the very least, be manipulated by governments through some other faction or some other form. So this whole rise of Bitcoin, and it started, you've seen the advertisements before, the Visa Metal Bitcoin Visa card. Have you seen ads for that? I see them all the time. There's a Bitcoin credit card, and there's an ad for it. It plays everywhere. And as soon as Visa started getting involved in it, I go, this is so corporate now. This isn't what it was.
Yes. Well, you know that Chrystia Freeland, finance minister in Canada, has talked about Bitcoin, and they want control of it.
Yeah, and Joe Biden too.
Yeah. So
there's another pattern for you.
They don't want you to have anything, man. They don't want you to have. They want to control it all. That's what they are.
And be happy.
So do you have that clip of Stelter?
Yeah, let's
get into that. Let's start with that. We have all these other stories as well. And we're also probably going to touch, we'll mention the Rebel News journalism license thing. We won't get too deep into it, but we'll touch on it.
Yeah, I think
because that's important as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get there. But anyway, I have the clip up. We could let her roll whenever you want.
Okay.
All right, so we have the Atlantic magazine ran a conference for several days on misinformation and disinformation, and one of the members in the audience is a very intelligent young man who's able to pull together this very good question, and he shoots it right at Brian Stelter, and that's the context here, so we'll just let it rip.
In that. Next question. You should set that to music.
Anyone have a mic?
Yeah, there.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Christopher Phillips. I'm a first year at the college. My question is for Mr. Stelter. You've all spoken extensively about Fox News being a purveyor of disinformation, but CNN is right up there with them. They pushed the Russian collusion hoax. They pushed the Jussie Smollett hoax. They smeared Justice Kavanaugh as a rapist, and they also smeared Nick Sandmann as a white supremacist. And yes, they dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop affair as pure Russian disinformation. With mainstream corporate journalists becoming little more than apologists and cheerleaders for the regime, is it time to finally declare that the canon of journalistic ethics is dead or no longer operative? All the mistakes of the mainstream media, and CNN in particular, seem to magically all go in one direction. Are we expected to believe that this is all just some sort of random coincidence, or is there something else behind it?
It's too bad. It's time for lunch.
You have 30 seconds.
No, I mean,
Brian.
there's a clock that says 30 seconds, but
Something tells me this guy is always out to lunch. He just bothers the hell out of me. I'll let him speak, though.
I think my honest answer to you, and I'll come over and talk in more detail after this, is that I think you're describing a different channel than the one that I watch. But I understand that that is a popular right-wing narrative about CNN. I think it's important, when we talk about shared reality and democracy, all these networks, all these news outlets have to defend democracy. And when they screw up, admit it. But when Benjamin Hall, the Fox correspondent, was wounded in Ukraine, the news crews at CNN and the New York Times stopped what they were doing, and they tried to help. They tried to help him get out of the country. They tried to find the dead crew members. That's what news outlets do. That's how they actually do work together, to your question about sharing those kinds of connections and trust. We don't talk about it enough, though. We don't share that reality about how that happens. And with regards to the regime, I think you mean the President Biden. The last time I spoke with a Biden aide, we yelled at each other. So that's the reality of the news business that people don't see, that people don't hear. They imagine that it's a situation that it simply is not. But I think your question, it speaks to the failure of journalism to show our work and show the reality of how our profession operates. We have a lot of work to do, I think.
Okay.
What was that? What the hell is he even talking about? That doesn't even address the question, except that he's an idiot.
Well, everybody knows Brian Stelter.
Well, you know what?
is an
Maybe he's
idiot.
not. Maybe he's not an idiot.
He is an idiot.
He is he's a purveyor of misinformation. Is what that guy is. That's what he is. He is a propagandist,
He's
and
a gaslighter.
that answer is exactly what Brendan just said. He's gaslighting everybody. That's a load of crap. He really just dodged the question. He came back with a bunch of which was sort of all misdirection and didn't really address the question directly at all. CNN sucks. That's the bottom line. MSNBC sucks, ABC sucks, NBC sucks. They all suck because they're all lying. They're just, we've gone from an era, this is not the era, the age of Walter Cronkite. And even back in those days, the media had a left-leaning bias. No question about it. When I worked at CTV, there was absolutely a left-leaning bias. And I asked around one day, I started to talk to people about it. And I said, why is it that so many people here have a left-leaning bias? And I said, and the other thing is, you know what I've noticed? I said, I've noticed that there's also a disproportionate number of gay people in the media business, like a lot, compared to percentage-wise in the population. I said, what is it about the media that attracts so many gay people? And somebody said to me, it's because it's like the arts. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense, right? Because
it's very theatrical.
yeah, there's a lot of there's a real creative aspect to it, right? The shooting video, editing video, creating graphics, writing. There's a performance aspect to television, right? So it's because it's part of the arts. But when you get a lot of artists together, you get a lot of left-leaning ideas. I'm kind of getting off track here now, okay?
Not really,
But
because-
I'm just showing that there's already built-in bias just because of the demographic makeup of the people even behind the scenes in the media business.
Yeah.
But what's going on today is it is absolute spin. It's all spin all the time, but it's not even just spin. It's gone into like absolute fabrication, lies, complete lies, to the point where you have reporters standing on a street with buildings burning behind them at a BLM protest, and they're saying that this is mostly peaceful. When obviously you've got absolute chaos, mayhem, and death and destruction, including murder, happening right behind the guy. And yet in Ottawa, what did we see? We saw, I watched it on CBC with guys in sort of in a studio with a green screen behind them, and they're running video behind or in the corner screen with people leaning out truck windows, making heart shapes with their hands, dancing, waving flags, singing the national anthem, while he's sitting there talking to the anchor, describing this violent insurrection. It's like the pictures just don't match. And yet, because he's saying it, it's this great big psyop. And people are being told, don't believe what you see. Just believe what we're telling you. It's like this huge disconnect. And if you don't buy into that, they portray you, they tell you you're crazy. They've been screwing with people's heads for so long now.
Something tells me that if that kid was even just a little bit less put together, that Brian Stelter would have tried to be malicious with him, or would have been like, you're just a Fox News bigot.
Well, he didn't even address the issue.
No, he
well,
didn't.
You know, when that guy
because he was afraid of that kid.
Yeah, you know, like, because now when somebody gets hurt in a war zone, we all get together. The New York Times helps whatever the other media outlets were. They're all part of it, man. They're all they're all together. Like I explained the other day that information flows down from the top down. So it starts with like papers like the New York Times at the top of the pyramid, and then it flows down, and then all the other media outlets are in lockstep and they report the same information. But because they're all now reporting it, it gets amplified, and then everybody believes it's true because, well, look, it's in 20 different newspapers. Yeah, but it's actually just one story. It's the same story rewritten by a different reporter, but it's the exact same information, maybe with one other quote in it or something. And it's just, or maybe it's like a local paper where they localized it. They took the national story and then they went and got local reaction to it, but then took the same information from the New York Times article and then they regurgitate that. And then because people keep seeing it over and over again, they believe that it's just fact, but it may not be. And in fact, it often isn't today. A lot of it is disinformation. Here's the other thing. This is the more important thing, Brendan, is whenever I see something like this conference, I didn't tune in. I didn't watch this. I don't need to, because I know what this is about. Mm-hmm. It's not worth my time, honestly, because this whole thing is about censorship. This whole thing is disinformation. This whole thing is designed to erode, limit, and eliminate free speech. That's what these guys are doing. That's what this conference is about. I guarantee it. And I have not watched it. I don't need to. I can guarantee it. That's what that's what this stuff leads to. Why are they so worried about disinformation? If they're worried about disinformation, then where they're going is then it has to be controlled. It's all about legislation. And it's about licensing.
Look at that, Rick Walker. Can you see that?
What's that?
On the screen. It says, can tech companies protect press free speech? Or can it protect free speech? So you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. And that's them sitting and thinking, like, big tech isn't out to protect anyone's free speech. That's not even a real question. And in fact, if that person is a journalist, they should take themselves out back behind a woodshed and blow their brains out, because that is sickening.
It's worse than that with big tech, because big tech isn't about free speech. Big tech is all about manipulation
And money.
and money. Big tech is about big media, big advertising, and you are the product they are selling to advertisers. And they are also about manipulation, and they are controlling people through not just what you're allowed to see, but what you're not allowed to see. They're censoring you and you don't even know it. They're manipulating you and you don't even know it. They're manipulating you. And this is also how they fix elections. It's not just about fake ballots. It's about manipulating public opinion through search algorithms. It's about what they choose to put in front of you so that your opinion is shaped over time. They can put, when you search for something on Google, and Google is the worst offender and the most sophisticated and the most advanced in terms of technology. Oh, there's my phone going off because I said it's listening to me all the time. That scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard that, but I was just talking and then my Google phone picked up on that and started to give me an answer back because they thought I was doing a query. Your phone's always listening to you. You have Alexa in your house, they're listening to you. They have such sophisticated systems that they know what you like, what you don't like, what they know probably what you're going to do next week. They know what you're going to buy, they know how you're going to vote. And if they don't like the way you're going to vote, they start putting stuff in front of you to try to make you vote another way. And they can shape your mind. They can change your mind. And you think you're immune? No, you're not. Everyone to some degree is being controlled, including me. I know it. I try to avoid it. I try to make myself aware so that I don't get sucked in, but I know that I am to some degree controlled.
Well, can I ask you something, Rick Walker?
Yeah.
You touched on it's not just about the ballots at election time. Well, I talked to an individual recently, and they worked for Elections Canada back in September, and he said, I worked that election, and there was nothing there. Everything was added up. I mean, what do you say to these people? What do you tell them?
What do you mean? What do I tell them?
What would be a response to that? Because I told that person that, well, that's your experience and it's subjective, and I could go into the rabbit hole here, but that does not define how elections.
That person doesn't know.
No, they don't.
Not really. Even if you were a scrutineer at a poll and you sat there and watched people come in and vote, you really don't know. You don't know. Not for sure. I'll tell you a story. Should I tell them the story about my experience as a poll supervisor?
Yeah, do it.
In the last federal election, not the last one, the one before. So
Second last.
I got a job with Elections Canada, and I was a poll supervisor. And everything was going fine, or so I thought, until the end of the night. And we had everyone. I had one of the biggest polls to supervise in the region and in the riding. And at the end of the night, I was the last one out. I was cleaning everything up. It was my job to make sure everything was taken care of. And I had to deliver all of the ballots back to the main office in the downtown of the city where I live. And of course, so I picked up this garbage bag and I was just searching through everything, just make sure. And I opened it up and I was going to put some other stuff in it. And I found it was an entire garbage bag full of ballots that someone or some people at one of the polling stations, like there were many stations within the room, the big gymnasium. And someone filled that bag full of ballots. And my heart sank and my stomach did 30 flips. And I thought, oh my God, what is going on here? Who did this? How did this happen? And I didn't know. I didn't see who had done it. Um, those, that's absolute manipulation and somebody trying to screw with things. And so those would have gone out into the trash and would not have been counted had I not found them. And so I, of course, took them all and took them with me and down to the Elections Canada head office, and I turned them in with all of the other ones, which had been properly sealed and put in envelopes, and we'd followed all the proper procedures after everything had been counted and tabulated and the results had been called in. And here I was with a garbage bag full of what I believe were uncounted ballots that someone had been chucking in a bag all night long.
Oh, dear God.
And so all I could do was take them downtown to Elections Canada's office and tell them what had happened. So that's what I did.
And, I mean,
And then after that, I don't even know what happened after that.
that's crazy. Did you notice anything about any of the ballots in there, or were you like, this is the bag?
You know what? Honestly, Brendan, I was afraid to even touch them. I didn't want my fingerprints on them. I didn't want, right? I was like, I don't know, even as a poll supervisor, exactly what I should do here.
Probably
There was
not
only one thing
amazing.
I could do, which was, in the end, was to just take them and turn them in. But I didn't even want to touch them with my fingers because I thought I don't know how serious this is going to be. Are there enough ballots here to affect the outcome of this election and this riding? So you don't know. Even if you're a scrutineer, you just don't know.
No.
There's all kinds of stuff that can happen. I do believe that the elections in Canada, because they still use paper ballots at the federal level, are very secure. But even then, you can see what can happen. Okay? And that was my one and only experience working for Elections Canada. And because of that, I didn't really want to do the job again. I didn't want to be responsible. I didn't want to be involved. I would do it again, I think, but I got involved again. Like I was a journalist, then I wasn't, so I was able to do the job because I was no longer engaged. But now I am, so I couldn't do that job. I'm just too exposed and immersed in the political process in this way right now, right? So I that wouldn't work.
No.
But yeah, that's a true story that happened to me, and take that for what it's worth. But the other thing to say to someone who says, "Oh no," and I do know a couple of people, probably the same people you knew or know, who said that the election was completely above board. But I would say it's not just about improper ballots when it comes to fixing an election. In the last federal election in Canada, what did we see? We saw crazy, stupid censorship. The People's Party of Canada not allowed to participate in any Chamber of Commerce debate across the country because every single chamber got marching orders from on high that they weren't to let the PPC participate. And so I don't know if there was a PPC candidate that was able to participate in a Chamber of Commerce election debate in a local community, they were few and far between because they were not allowed in any of the communities that I was aware of, certainly not in my hometown here.
Yeah.
And that's because the chambers are now captured organizations, institutions, right? Like corporations. And they're afraid of the PPC. They're afraid of this, if you want to call it a populist movement, they're afraid of it. So they were censorship.
It's very clear why that is too, because a lot of these Chamber of Commerces, they rely so heavily on government funds. They're very subsidized, and they're very much champagne socialist, most of them, I would say.
Well, they have become an arm's length extension of their local governments. Usually they're municipal governments. And at the provincial level, they are also arm's length extensions of provincial and federal government. They are an arm's length extension of government. And why is that? Because the corporations, because they're all, you have big corporations that have come in, and they've all been captured by government through the use of grants, subsidies, tax breaks, and regulation. So government is controlling these corporations. These chambers are no longer autonomous. They're captured organizations. And they honestly, in my opinion, they no longer represent small business, even at the local level. They do not. They claim to, but they don't. They do the bidding of the big corps and fall into line and adopt all of their policies. And I'm not saying that chambers don't do some good things, but they're not functioning in the way that I think a chamber of commerce or chambers of commerce should function anymore. And they didn't even really have they engaged in a form of censorship to fix an election, because that's a way to fix an election. How else do they do it? Big tech. They manipulate the elections, and they absolutely do. If you don't think so, think again, because they are manipulating public opinion through search engine results. What they put in front of you, what they decide that they're going to suppress, what information they're going to give you, what the information they're not going to give you. And in the way that a search engine is built, they pick winners and losers all the time. What dog food do you pick that ends up at the top of the list? When you type in dog food, what's the number one dog food? Well, it's whatever Google picks and decides is the most relevant. So that becomes number one. And then of course their sales go through the roof because they're number one. So the top 4 or 5 that are on page 1, those are the ones that get all the sales because they're on the first page. And the ones above that, those companies pay for those spots.
Yeah, 100%.
So you're being completely manipulated, and people don't even realize it. And people want that information. They want to feel like what they're getting is an honest search result. But how do you know? That might not be the best dog food, and it might not be the best political candidate. And the information on there might not be truthful because it might be coming from the New York Times or Brian Stelter. In fact, I can tell you that if it's coming from Brian Stelter, it's propaganda. He's not a journalist, and he's a paid operative, and he's got a political agenda.
Well, the only thing I'd listen to him about is what donut to buy. Other than that,
even then, I wouldn't. These guys are all lying to you, folks. Every single one of them. They're all lying. Lie. And because it's just this disconnect between what's real and what isn't. And that's also why I wanted to get into realism, but we'll do it another night. Realism as a part of political ideology. And we'll maybe do that when we get into more of why I say that fascists and Nazis are really just on the same side of the political spectrum as communists. And I've been getting a lot of flack from people.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people. Rick, you're such an idiot. Don't you know that the fascists are on the right and the communists and the socialists are on the left? You don't even know that? Yeah, I know that there's a graph, and I know that people think that, but it doesn't really accurately portray how those political ideologies intersect, because they do. And there are other ways of looking at it, and we'll illustrate that for you in a future episode of the Freedom Reporters and here on the Maverick News Channel.
I think it's worth pointing out while we're talking about Brian Stelter is a total failure of the CNN streaming platform, which just took a big crap. And CNN is going down the tube so hard right now. They've fired Chris Cuomo. They fired. They let the CEO had to leave, and this other stuff. Like CNN is a burning house on fire, and everybody is leaving except Brian Stelter. It's just too big to move too quickly out of there. So I think that if they don't change their tune soon enough, I think it's very possible that we might have a future without CNN. Because after Trump, there you go, Rick.
Nazi equals National Socialism. That's right.
It's in the name.
That's right.
But since Donald Trump, CNN hasn't been able to captivate audiences for anything. People don't care about CNN. And
Kim RS says, if Sean Penn gets the nuke war he wants, hope the bomb drops on my head. Yeah. You know, that's the other thing is, did anybody here see the Sean Penn, Sean Hannity interview?
no.
Yeah, so the Sean Penn went on Sean Hannity's show. I watched it, and it just illustrated for me exactly what I've been saying, okay? It's like the politics, and especially war, politics makes strange bedfellows. War makes even stranger bedfellows sometimes, right? So here you have two guys who don't even like each other, and yet they're both sitting at this desk on TV and on the internet now. And they're both basically agreeing. Yeah, we need to arm Ukraine and bomb the crap out of Putin. Let's go to war. It's bizarre. It's kind of bizarre, but I totally understand it because you know the phrase, scratch a socialist, you'll get a fascist, or maybe it's the other way around. Yeah, I think it's scratch a socialist and you'll find a fascist because they're both authoritarians. And in this case, they have a common goal, which is to go to war. Their reasons might be a little different, but not that much. Kevin Beckley says the U.S. and Canada is being run by unbelievably sick people. I absolutely agree with that. Hollywood and politics is an odd bed couple and potentially deadly, says Kevin Hendricks. Yes. And very shortly, I think we might try to take a couple of phone calls from folks, and we'll see if we get the phone system fired up here. Arena C says Rick, Sean Penn has lost the plot. Yeah, well, I think he's misguided.
Yeah.
Canadian Rage Gaming says, I felt similar with this when this whole thing started. All the political parties were taking shots at each other, and then all this happens, and they're all buddy-buddy. Exactly.
That was the weirdest part of that election is they did like some advertising campaigns together, and it was all the party leaders standing with each other, and it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How's 1960 says Penn, movie career overtime to enter politics. Yeah.
Yep. That will happen.
Well, he went over there to make a documentary, and that's because someone gave him money, obviously. So he's been paid because he's a political, part of a political team, right? So he gets funding, and off he goes to Ukraine to make a movie, a video. And isn't it interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it interesting, Brendan, that he went to Ukraine just before the war started, and somehow, wasn't the timing on that interesting? It's almost as though maybe, if I didn't know better, I'd say somebody maybe knew the whole thing was going to blow up, right? In advance. And they thought, let's get Sean Penn over there and get him into position so that he can get this thing shot before it erupts. And then he's there while it erupts.
Yeah.
Still there. I just think the timing is unbelievably, it's like almost like it was planned or something.
Well, we don't believe in coinkydinks in this show, and he's a Democrat Party shill, so what do you expect? Where's Madonna? Oh, I don't want to talk about Madonna.
Sean Penn is a puppet. He has to say what they tell him or they will kill him. He was almost crying.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no question. He's controlled, as most of these politicians are at this point, too. And that's why we need to find out which ones are part of the WEF, expose them, because they have agendas, an agenda collectively, that is not in the best interests of our countries
No.
or the people. They do not.
And there's so many misguided people, right? They feel like all of these socialist parties are going to instill socialist programs into the country that are going to take care of people, but the reality is that just isn't going to happen. The best thing that you could ever do for prosperity and a civilization is less government. Less government you have, the more money in your pocket. The more money in your pocket, the better things can be. And I know Canada is going to be stuck with some form of socialism, whether it's going to be Medicare or excuse me, not Medicare, healthcare or something else. But
well, we have Dr. Robert Malone
mm-hmm.
here, who this just comes to mind because I remembered this clip from the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of the people saying that we need to call out these WEF members. So let's run that clip for you and see what he has to say. Of course, Dr. Malone is one of the inventors of the mRNA technology that was used to create the COVID vaccine.
So what does the everyday average...
But he's saying it's time to start doxing these WEF members who are politicians who are in our government.
The everyday average woman, man, child, how do they fight this? How do they stop this,
So one of the things we've tried to do, and I've invested thousands of dollars in this, we're teamed with a group in Sweden that's about to come out with a book on the World Economic Forum. It's currently in Dutch. So we've got to get it translated into English and available in the United States. But what we've done is compiled a massive spreadsheet of World Economic Forum trainees because they are everywhere. They're all over in American industry, government, big media, tech, okay? The starting point is people need to know who they're dealing with. We need to out these people. I mean, the term is used, doxing. As far as I'm concerned with these folks, doxing is good. Let's go get them. Let's find out who they are and make sure they're not in our government, because the loyalty they have is not to the American Constitution. It's not to the nation state. They are coming from a belief system that says that nation state is an obsolete idea, and we have to have a one world government that is basically a fusion of the interests of corporations and politics, global politics. And we got to start by finding out who they are, voting them out of office, making sure they are not part of our governments. Two notable characters here in the United States are Governors Inslee and Newsom. Okay, we've got to out these people. We've got to force them to account for whether or not they're Americans or are they globalists. And if they're globalists, they got to get out. We got to get rid of them. We got to take back ownership of our country. If you believe in the Constitution, if you believe in the principles of free speech and personal autonomy, medical autonomy, and autonomy at every level, other level, it's time to fight, or your children are going to live in basically a techno-fascism for the rest of their natural lives as serfs.
That's it in a nutshell. They are everywhere.
Yeah.
And
the list
that's what I've been saying. There are fascists among us. What is a fascist? Well, I think we have sort of this, as I said before, hybrid fascistic, communistic government, but it's very fascistic. Big government controlling corporations that still have an element of private ownership because they're in the stock markets, but the government's controlling them. They've captured all of these institutions. They've captured these big companies. That's what fascism is. It's not like communists will take over and nationalize big companies. They'll nationalize the oil industry, say, and the government will control it and run it. Fascists control it, but they let companies run it. Then they just tax the living crap out of it. That's what we saw even with Jagmeet Singh of the NDP in Canada say the other day, because gas prices were rising in true fascistic form. His solution to rising gas prices was not to, oh, well, let's give people a tax break or find some way to get the price down. His solution was, let's tax the big oil companies, and that will put more money into the government coffers, and then he gets to redistribute it because he blames the high prices. Well, for political optics, he blames the high prices on the oil companies, when in truth, the high prices are being caused by government policies.
Yeah.
But then he takes this problem government created and says that he has a solution, which is higher taxes on the corporations, which he demonizes, but he controls them anyway. So that it gives him and the government even more control than they have right now, while convincing the public through this great big screwy mind psyop thing where he basically uses doublespeak to make it sound like he's fighting for you, when in reality, he's just giving himself more power, putting more power in the hands of government, and then deciding who's going to win, who's going to lose, who gets a handout, who doesn't get a handout. You still can't afford to buy the damn gas because the price is still high. And in fact, when he adds that taxation to the oil companies, what do you think is going to happen to the price of gas? It's going to increase even more. So it'll be even more expensive for you. But then his solution will be, well, then I'll give you a handout. It's a form of slavery.
It really
because they put you in a position where you're dependent on them. They don't give you a break. They give you a handout. They don't give you a hand up.
And
it's a trap.
Here's an example of this, right? So I was watching House of Commons question period the other day. Well, this is from April 1st when the climate tax came on. And a conservative MP stood up and made some argument or another that we don't need things more expensive right now. It'd be much better off if you would just cancel this increase. Yada, yada, yada. Same old talking points that they have been making. However, the Liberal MP stood up to answer the question, and you know what they said? They said, oh, I know you're thinking about April 1st, but you know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of July 15th when our constituents will get their climate tax incentive checks in the mail, blah, blah, blah. And that, right there, my friends, that is the dangling carrot. And that's the dangerous part of it.
Yeah, it's like your income tax. They tax you all year long. They take more than the government's actually entitled to sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. So they end up with more than they should have taken to begin with, based on the laws that they created and the rules they created, deciding how much of your money they're going to take. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the year, when you do your taxes, they give you a tax refund. And people view that as some sort of a government kickback. Like, it's like, I hear people say it all the time. It's like, I can't wait to get my government check back. No, it's your money, man. You earned it. It's your money. They just took far more than they were supposed to, and now they're giving you back the extra that they took unlawfully, basically, right?
Yeah.
And why don't they just like, oh, look at all the paperwork, the bureaucracy they have to go through, the red tape to go through the process of taking your money, figuring out how much, then giving you some of the money back. They're paying bureaucrats to sit there and push paper around or sit at a keyboard. Why don't they just take less and call it a day?
The reality is, for most Canadians, I think this whole income tax model is total BS. The government knows how much money that you've made. Like, back in the day, you used to need your T4 to do your taxes and that sort of stuff. The government gets the T4 before it's even in your hand. They know everything before it's even time to file. The whole thing doesn't even make sense in a lot of ways. And in some ways, believe it or not, there is TurboTax, and they run a lobbyist campaign, and how taxes are actually filed with people is controlled by these lobbyists like H&R Block and TurboTax, because they want you to use their service when, meanwhile, for most Canadians and most families in Canada, and I would wager in the United States, your taxes are way simpler than they make it to be. And you're right, using all of that government resource to investigate the little guy, I don't buy that they need all of that.
Well, this is something you drew my attention to. This story from Australia. This lady's name is Karen, and this is relevant to what we're speaking about. So I just queued this up. And this is an experiment that was done in a community where people on welfare, they had a new system in place that was in a way a social credit system. It restricted the way that you were allowed to spend your money because when government is giving you money and you're dependent on government, they don't really view it as your money. You see, folks, when they start talking about universal basic income, if you think that that's going to be your money, you're sadly mistaken. It's not your money. It's the government will say it's their money that they're letting you have. That's your allowance from them. It's not money. It's not your money. You didn't earn it. It doesn't belong to you. These people don't respect property rights. They don't understand property rights, which is one of the key components, one of the cornerstones of a free democratic society. Mm-hmm. Universal basic income is a form of slavery. If you don't believe me, watch this. This lady's name is Karen, Australia. This is what happened to her and a whole community in Australia, another country that is going down the same path as Canada, probably at about the same pace.
Actually, I think Australia is a little bit ahead of us because their free speech is already in the garbage.
Yes.
I want to do a whole show on that in the near future here because there's lots of crazy stuff. But you can go to jail for a tweet in Great Britain and Australia.
So this is what happens when the government makes you dependent on them, and you think you're going to get all this free money. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Take it from Karen.
What have I ever done for the government to treat me this way, to treat thousands of other people this way?
Cashless debit card with restrictions. A trial.
You know, we've been branded as drug addicts and alcoholics and gamblers and dole bludgers. Like, most of us are just doing the best we can to get by.
So this is a depressed area, the economy devastated.
The only restrictions on the card is for alcohol and gambling, and obviously the drug dealers don't take cards generally anyway. It
was a mandatory program. They didn't have a choice. They had to participate.
8% of the benefit is paid onto the card. 20% is paid in cash to the recipient's normal bank account.
So it's a digital currency, essentially.
I hate using my card. I've started shopping online for Coles just so I don't have to go in there and use my card. I'm terrified of it declining.
If they do want to buy some second-hand things on eBay, or they do want to go to markets and they do need extra cash, say for a second-hand, like they might want to buy a second-hand lounge, they can contact the department and get an additional payment in cash as long as they can prove that that's what they want it for.
But the whole process of going through a department, a bureaucrat, in order to spend your own money, can you understand how that can cause distress?
Well, for a start, I've got to say this is the taxpayers' money. And I think that the taxpayers have a right to know where their money is going.
I understand their motives, but their process is flawed. If my partner was to quarantine some of my money, tell me where I can and can't spend it, tell me it's for my own good. You know, if I put something like that up on social media or whatever, people would be screaming financial abuse, domestic violence, get out. Why is it okay for the government to do it?
It's not their money. It's the taxpayers' money. Is it the taxpayers' money? No. The point is the government views it as government money. That's what she really was getting at. She just wasn't able to articulate it properly. It's because once the government has it, it's no longer taxpayer money. I suppose you could view it that way, but with the way but is that woman a taxpayer? No, she's just a welfare dependent. Oh, what about people on universal basic income? Where do you think all that's going, folks? Do you think that you're going to be free when you're taking free money? You cannot be owned and be free.
No. And she makes a really good point in that video when she had her card decline. That's embarrassing. That's a depravity of your humility.
Rennie Honeycomb wants to know if there's any way to get rid of a majority government for elections. You need a vote of non-confidence. The budget just went through. That's why Trudeau formed that coalition, because if a budget is defeated, that generally leads to a vote of no confidence, and that can result in an election. Very difficult now because they've got the coalition and an agreement. This budget passing, done deal, before they ever presented it to the public. No. The short answer is really very difficult. We just have to wait. And they now have Trudeau and Singh.
Mavericks, as far as it goes, hold the line, and we're going to hold it with you.
Yeah, Patrick Murphy says we need the Roddy Piper sunglasses. Yeah, I know what you're saying, because it's like a movie.
Yep.
And it's not a science fiction flick; it's a documentary. But I think that what we just laid out there, that story tells it all. It tells you everything you need to know. People need to wake up. Hello, Canada. Hello, USA.
Hello.
Wake up.
Well, that's right, because we're supposed to be a part of a civilization that is under the assumption that you're innocent until proven guilty. And these programs that just say, oh, well, you're just going to buy drugs with it. Yes, there is drug problems out there.
There will be more drug problems when all of this happens, because people will be more depressed. They won't be productive. You'll have more people sitting at home on their sofas. wondering what to do with themselves because they're basically being paid to not work.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can have more people just sitting around with idle time on their hands, and it's going to lead to depression, drug abuse, and more deaths. Rick, the war against Russia is going well. France is preparing to ration gas, fuel costs, and inflation keeps soaring in the EU, and it's starting to affect the US, says Irina C. It's going swimmingly, isn't it? Their plan is working. Yeah. Government money is borrowed bank money.
Right now it is.
Yeah, yeah. But as I said, the dirty little secret is I don't think they plan to ever pay it back. They just plan to keep on borrowing and printing and borrowing. These guys don't think they have to pay it back. They think Trudeau thinks the budget will balance itself. He said so. And I think he meant it. Because in his view, modern monetary theory dictates that all you have to do is inflate your way out of economic problems. Just use inflation. That absolves the government of debt, but what it does is it puts the burden on working class people and destroys people's savings. Ultimately, it will lead to disaster, economic collapse. It will. It's just a matter of time. I can't tell you when. I'm surprised, honestly, that the economy is still as strong as it is, even in the face of. I shot video today. I just didn't have time to show you what I saw at the stores today, but it was scary, and it just shows me that we've got really serious problems. But I'm surprised it's taken this long for it to filter its way through the economy. It just shows that the economy that was built through the Industrial Revolution in the West was so strong that the free market system that was in place prior to all of this produced such prosperity that it's that robust right now. There are other reasons for it too. Not the least of which is the fact that we, for decades, were the only countries that had nuclear weapons. So it put us at the top of the food chain, right? And gave us the ability to have, through the US dollar, the world reserve currency. But it's happening. The economy is in trouble. You can see it just by going to the grocery store or going to the gas pump.
Absolutely. So I'm sure I'm dying to know. You were back at the grocery store again today.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have crinkle cut French fries?
They had 2 bags.
Breaking news: Rick Walker got his.
I got one of them.
You didn't take 2 of them?
No. I took 1 bag. It was a medium-sized bag of crinkle cut French fries, but they only had 2.
You should have took both of them and started like.
And only one brand.
Thing.
Only one brand. 2 bags. I got 1. I left 1 for some other French fry aficionado. I thought I can't hoard the French fries. Can't do it. It wouldn't be right.
Winter 2020 toilet paper shortages.
It would have been very un-Canadian of me to take that
fries.
Second bag of fries, Brendan. I felt a little bit guilty taking even that one. But I thought that I deserved it because I'd been so patient and had waited so long. And I realized, there's still straight cuts there, and there's some shoestrings to the left. So, I didn't take any of the other ones, just that 1 bag of crinkle cuts.
You're a good man, I gotta say. I would have been like, I'm taking both of them. It's all mine.
What else do we have to talk about tonight? We have the
whole Whitmer story.
Yes.
So crack that open. Let's take a look here. Well, here, we'll do this to start us off.
Gretchen Whitmer. So, of course, this is about the story in Michigan where this group was supposed to be like in a militia that was accused of plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And trying to think, how long ago was that now?
That is October 2020.
And that was leading up to the election, right, for her, as I recall.
Yep.
So it created a firestorm in the media, of course. Oh, you know what it was, too? She was sort of being considered, I think at that time, as a possible contender to run against Biden for the leadership of the Democratic Party to run in the presidential election. Her name was being bandied about, and not just so much for her to possibly be considered for that, but maybe as a vice presidential contender, a choice to be considered. Anyway, I put her front and center in the media for a short time.
I know that she is a typical Democrat leader. She wants very much to close the one of the main pipelines that's located in the straits of northern Michigan there. And if that pipeline were to shut down,
Line 5
would be in so much trouble. We would have massive shortages and huge gas prices here in the East Coast area and in Ontario especially. This would drastically increase the cost of even flights, groceries, everything. And that's a whole other thing. Now, have you ever spent any time in northern Michigan or Michigan?
No, not much. Not really. I've driven through there a little bit, but no, I've really not spent much time there. I've been, I spent a lot of time in Detroit over the years.
Yes, you would have.
Yeah, lots of time in Detroit. I actually like Detroit.
Yeah, cool.
I do, yeah.
I actually like northern Michigan a lot. I think it's a beautiful place. If you are ever able to go there, you will have a vacation that is second to none. It's a very unique experience, and it's very cost effective. I do recommend.
Well, to focus on this story, since we're kind of off track here, two men who were accused of plotting to kidnap the governor have been acquitted. So the jury decided to acquit these two guys, and they were apparently two of the ringleaders, so-called ringleaders. And this is significant because it really does deliver a big blow to the government in what was supposed to be this huge domestic terrorism case. In fact, it was one of the biggest domestic terrorism cases in U.S. history. And that's the way it was portrayed from the beginning.
Yes.
But Chief U.S. District Robert Yonker declared a mistrial on kidnapping conspiracy charges, and says that the ringleaders, as the media keeps calling them, Adam Fox, who's 38 years old, and Barry Croft, who's 46 years old, The mistrial was declared against them. And then Daniel Harris, who's 24 years old, and Brandon Caserta, 34 years old, they're being freed. They were freed today after spending almost 2 years in jail.
Cool. And a mistrial was declared for 2 of them because the jury couldn't come to a consensus on the trial. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they were deadlocked. Mm-hmm. And the trial went on for 20 days and included 13 days of testimony and almost 38 hours of jury deliberations over 5 days. And they heard hours of closing arguments and got hours of instructions from the judge after listening to the testimony and going through a multimedia presentation from the government. Mm-hmm. But we know that the truth is they had a lot of federal agents embedded with this group. And this group, I guess they would get stoned and drunk and carry on. And the lawyers said that they spent a lot of time talking big. The FBI agents, I guess, is what they were sort of, well, the defense raised all these questions about these FBI agents conducting and claiming that a team of investigators and informants orchestrated the conspiracy to entrap them and picked these guys because they were sort of a group of outcasts and social misfits is the way they sort of viewed them. Maybe even thinking that they were kind of dumb. And they were trying to convince them to go ahead and engage in unlawful activity. And it's my understanding that there were actually more agents embedded than members of the actual group.
Yeah. What a mess.
Oh.
This is the self-creating narrative with the war on domestic citizens, which is our new war that we're in. We had, war on drugs, war on terror, war on domestic terrorists.
Yeah, well, here's another little nugget of truth. There are powerful political organizations in the West, and they've declared, well, they're targeting a big portion of the population and classifying them as domestic terrorists. That would be, I think, mostly, well, that's exactly what we saw in Ottawa. It's the same thing going on in the U.S.
Yeah, parents.
And it isn't just white people.
No.
If you think it's about white people, it's not about that. It's about working class, middle class people that they view as kind of backwards. And mostly white is the way they view people. But if you're not white, if you're any other ethnicity and if you support them at all, you're throwing in with them too. They don't care. Because they just see what it is like I said before, they just view this whole group of society, this group, as a bunch of backwoods, hayseed, toothless, redneck, dumb hicks. And they find us distasteful and disgusting. And they would probably like us all to just die, honestly. Go away and die someplace so we don't have to look at you and don't want to listen, smell you. As Sean Hannity, who I generally like but don't agree with his position on the war right now, but as he commonly says, the smelly Walmart people. That's how they view us. And it's true. And those are the people they've decided to target as political opponents. And that's what was going on right here, in my estimation. That's what went on here. That's what went on at January 6th. That's what went on in Ottawa. It isn't about real crimes. It's about lying, making up stories, spinning a narrative, taking a grain of truth, embedding it in there so that it looks like it could be true, so that you can portray these truckers as a bunch of Nazis, or portray these guys who were just acquitted of this kidnapping plot as domestic terrorists, insurrectionists. And that's what Justin Trudeau and his band of merry liberal bandits,
pirates,
tried to do in Ottawa. They tried to turn public perception in a way to make people think that the Ottawa convoy was the Canadian equivalent of the January 6th insurrection. That's why they kept calling it an illegal occupation. Choice of words, shape public perspective. Just lie. Doesn't matter what it is, just say what you want it to be and get the media to repeat it, and it shall be so, because they're not realists. It's about fabrication.
And the damage is already done, and you can see this across the board with Kyle Rittenhouse, Nick Sandman. Nick Sandman, he's been paid out by CNN, but the damage is done there anyway. How are you going to function properly in society? You'll have to get your name changed and everything else, because the people don't pay attention when they change the narrative on a story, or what is it called when they make a change or something like that to a story?
Pivot?
A retraction. So they don't pay attention to retractions at all. The damage is already done for these people, and it's goes back to what Brian Stelter was saying. They don't bloody care at all. He's out to lunch. They go in, they do the damage. So what? And these are all organizations that BlackRock and Vanguard have their fingers in. It's absolutely appalling. It's disgusting.
Let's take a short 30-second break here. And when we come back, we'll continue the discussion, and I'll set up the phone system so that we can take a few phone calls from folks. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Hey, how about this? I'll get out of this program here and go into the other one.
Sure. And then we can make the phone system work properly.
Sounds good.
So say goodbye to Brendan. Say goodbye to me. We will be right back after this message.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And you can donate at freedomreporters.com. We do need your help. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed, and we're seeing that across the board with independent journalists out there. We are under attack as we engage in this information war. We're seeing it on every front. We're seeing it with Rebel News. We're seeing it with even live streamers. We're seeing people taken down yesterday, and I see people thanking us for having Scott Ritter, the former UN weapons inspector and expert on the Russian military and the situation in Ukraine, for having him on the program. And it was an outstanding conversation, but they banned him off Twitter, then took his ban, then removed the ban, so he's back on. But they are suppressing even our videos. Shortly after That video went up last night. It was blocked in Canada and the US. I had to make a small change to it and resubmit, and then they put it back up. And I have a shorter version of it up, dealing just with the Scott Ritter portion. The reason for it coming down didn't have anything to do with him. It was stuff from earlier in the broadcast, but they are suppressing information. We've had warnings, and we're trying to get onto other platforms. We are on some other platforms, including Rumble. And we're expanding out onto Getter and Gab and others. And we need you to go subscribe over there. Go to Rumble, subscribe to us there. Watch us on Rumble. Don't watch on YouTube. It's better for the world if you watch on Rumble. So subscribe over there. It's very difficult for us to convince people for some reason to go and subscribe over there. Now, we appreciate you subscribing on YouTube, but it's dangerous. And there's some things we're just not allowed to talk about, like the thing in the arm. We have information that we want to talk about, but the vast majority of our subscribers are still on YouTube, and people sit and complain about it. What can you do? It's very easy. Go over to the other channel. Just subscribe over there, and when you see the notifications, once you subscribed, it'll come to your email when we post new videos, and you can just click on the link in your email. It'll take you right to the Rumble broadcast. So it's quite easy. It works very well. So we encourage everybody to do that. Of course, we won't leave YouTube because we do have a lot of subscribers on YouTube right now, but that's the solution. That's the solution. We need people to subscribe over there. So we're going to try and set up this phone system. I don't see Brendan in the broadcast here yet with the phone system, so hopefully he is able to log in. If not, he'll come back online over here. So let me just send him a note while I get this set up, because we want to take some of your let's get him to log back into our regular broadcast over here. We'll get him back on over here. Hang on. There he is. Okay, so he's in there. Okay, welcome, sir. You can't be heard over on the main broadcast, so let me bring you in. Hang on. We're going to bring Brendan back in, everybody. And there he is, the one, the only, Brendan Kennedy.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, are the lines open?
Not yet. No, I have to get the phone system set up. So why don't you talk to the folks while I get things going with that. I'm just trying to find a good, there we go. That should work pretty well with that layout. And we'll get this phone system fired up so that we can engage with our Maverick family.
Awesome. So we do have a lot of subjects on the table tonight, folks. So you can call in. We have, let's see. We have social credit discussions that are happening. We could talk about your thoughts and opinions on the whole Whitmer situation. If you want to talk about the government budget, any of the items that you may be disgruntled with or dissatisfied with. There's all kinds of things. Canada is spending a bunch of money again on a Canadarm again, on a hand that can't even give the finger. Can you imagine spending billions of dollars on a giant robotic arm that can't give the finger? Like, what the hell? I guess that would be a really American thing. So it probably is not going to be with Canada, but in either case, there's a lot of subjects. Call in, the lines are open, and
thank you for calling Call-In Studios host and call screener line. Please enter your show or meeting number and press pound.
Oh, okay. I see what's happening here. So
Yeah, I'm just getting things set up here.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take you out for a second, Brendan.
Okay.
Just you can still talk. I'm just going to remove your. You can still talk while the folks look at my ugly mug.
You did not enter a number. Goodbye.
Roger
That took too long. Hang on a second.
All right, Rick. Rick's getting things set up here. It's just going to be a moment, and the lines are going to be opening up. You'll be able to call in. We have a lot of subjects, once again, that are on the table for this evening. Call in, make your voice be heard. I absolutely love a lot of the feedback that we have received from the Maverick family. It's been very interesting.
For calling Call-In Studios host and call screener line,
Please
please enter your show or meeting number and press pound.
Having
Hang on. I'm just going to take you out, Brendan, for a second while I get this thing set up. Bear with me, folks. I'll have it set up momentarily. We're almost there. What we need is a producer, but that would take a budget. Which is why it would be really great if we could get a couple of donations so we can get a little bit more help, and then this would go much more smoothly. Let's try it one more time, shall we? Almost there. Logging in to the call system. Okay. We are in. Okay, so let's bring Brendan back in a moment. Hang on. That goes away. Let's get the phone number up so people can call in. And we'll start with this. Here's how you can join the conversation tonight. Wow, this really is not going smoothly, is it? Let's just do it this way, shall we? If you want to participate, you can call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-3733. And we'll take your calls here on the Maverick News Channel. And we still have a few more changes to make to this system so that everything works out smoothly. I've got a new piece of equipment coming that'll make all of this work much more seamlessly, and then this won't happen. But we're ready to go, folks. So if you want to participate in the conversation, just call the number on the screen, and I'll throw you into the studio, and we'll engage in chat. And we'll put some voices to the names. 1-833-975-3733. And I'll just run this video to let people again know how they can participate in the show.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
So it is Freaky Phone In Friday. So anybody that wants to phone in, you can phone in. I know there's a bunch of people watching because I can see the numbers on the screen. So don't be afraid. Don't be a chicken. Give us a call and we'll talk about anything you want to talk about tonight. We can talk about the federal budget in Canada. We can talk about Joe Biden and his disorientation. We can talk about the domestic terrorist accusations, the Whitmer plot acquittals. We can talk about Justin Trudeau. We can talk about the Great Reset. We can talk about Smokey the Bear. Anything you want to talk about, it's fair game. If you have questions for me, you want to challenge anything I've said, you want to talk about what fascism is, and you want to challenge me on that whole where, fascism is on the right and communism is on the left, you want to challenge me on that, we can have a conversation about it and maybe do something productive about that. If there's anything that's concerning you, if there's another story you're not aware of or you're aware of that you want to bring to our attention, we can talk about that. You want to talk about the truckers? That's okay too. We can talk about anything you like. What other stories do we have lined up today, Brendan? What was...
Ooh, way to put me on the spot, buddy. I got it. Hold up.
There was the 3 people shot in Niagara Falls today after gunfire. In the tourist area there. 1 person was killed, 2 others injured. Overnight shooting. We have a caller coming in. Let's go to the first call here. Not sure where they're calling from. And there's not a name on the screen, but we'll find out who this is. Hello, who do we have with us tonight?
Larry.
Larry, where are you calling from, Larry?
Lindsay, Ontario.
Oh, well, welcome to the Maverick News Channel. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, just wondering how can people be so blind that they're not seeing what's going on?
Well, I think that part of it is, well, a lot of it is media. And they, as I've been saying, they spin the stories, right? They're outright lying, to be blunt.
But how come people aren't waking up? They're watching your show. They're watching shows similar to yours. Why are they not seeing it?
Well, there is a big majority of people. This is Brendan here. There is a big majority of people who just don't want to listen. They believe that the media is totally on their side and is looking out for them and is playing the part that it's supposed to. They don't know the difference. And I think alongside of that, there's a lot of people who just don't care. Don't care. They don't vote. Wow. They don't look at things. They just live their daily lives every day, go to work, come home, or maybe not even work at all. So I think there's 2 parts of that as to why so many people allow for this to happen. And we even had a caller on the other day. They said they had never voted in their life or participated in an election. And I don't know. Yeah. So
it's more than that, though. You know what I think it really is Canada and the United States were both, how should I put this? Unique and exceptional societies, countries, truly unique and exceptional. Okay. And people came to trust the institutions here. They learned to trust the media because it was a trustworthy institution. All of the media outlets.
Even not seeing it on the lying news. People are out and about. They're purchasing things and seeing the prices go crazy.
Yep.
So they can't be that naive.
I think they are. Because the population, most people do not have a grounding in economics or even politics. They know their jobs. They specialize in what they do, and they get their politics and their information from the media generally. And even as I and because you've had generations of people who have put trust, and rightfully so, in the media, in government, in police, in all of these organizations, they still trust them today. So it's very difficult for people to let go of that. And when you're sitting there telling them you can't trust them anymore, they're not the same as they were. They're lying to you. I go home, I tell my family, people, my relatives, I worked there for 25 years, and I'm standing before them and I'm saying, I worked there. They're lying to you. It's not the way it used to be. Are you hearing me? And they look at me and they think I'm nuts, because it's too difficult for people to let go of it. And I think we've gone so far, Larry, I fear that the only way people are going to wake up is for things to absolutely collapse.
Well, I guess there's going to be a lot of people waking up real soon.
I fear you're right. I really do.
Scary, very scary.
Yeah. It's hard for people to, it's like police, right? I never thought I'd see the day when the government sent in a bunch of goons to beat up a bunch of peaceful protesters who honestly were there lawfully. It may have been inconvenient.
That they had every legal right to do so.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lawful protest.
It
wasn't an awful protest until Trudeau and the RCMP got involved.
Right. It was the government and the police that created the violence. And the media lied about the whole thing from start to finish, and they're still lying about it today. And then we see Jean Charest running for the federal Conservatives, criticizing Pierre Poilievre, his opponent, one of his opponents, for supporting the truckers. Because he's part of it. He's part of this.
Sure he is. He's liberal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's part of the problem.
I don't know.
You'll see the Liberal Party will disappear, and the NDP will just be the only party left. Trudeau will wipe the Liberals right out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We have a lot of other calls coming in. I think we're going to move on to Tony.
Right.
Thank you very much, Larry, for calling in.
Absolutely.
Hey, it's like your show. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. It's
Thanks,
been a
Larry.
pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and Tony joins
Hello.
us now. Hello, Tony. Where are you calling from?
London, Ontario.
Oh, my hometown. I grew up there.
Well, I enjoy watching you guys. It's hard to find legitimate news. You know, nowadays the mainstream is, of course, owned by the government.
Yes.
To the tune of 600 whatever million a few years ago. So you can't get reasonable reporting anymore. I was talking about how last Friday the CDC had to release another 10,000 documents relating to the Pfizer vaccine. There's no mention of Moderna, but it all ties in with government control basically of everything. And I think a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I thought I sent a little message through when you were interviewing, and I mentioned Matthias Desmet, the psychologist who mass formation psychosis. And it all ties in, like Dr. Robert Malone mentioned it a few months ago on Josh Rogan's show, and it just broke the internet because everybody was Googling or looking into that. And a lot of people are just not in tune with what's going on because, you know, they believe the narrative that the government, big pharma, big government, all the bureaucracy is spewing. And the sad thing is that 30% will never realize. You could put all the data in front of them, and they'll never realize that it's the truth. They'll say no. They won't. But there's that middle 40% that'll go, gee, this is starting to smell bad. So I don't know if you understand, my whole thesis here is that we've been led down the garden path by the big government and big pharma, big tech, and they're all in bed together. Does that sound logical?
Yes. Yeah, of course they are. And they're all profiting from it, and they're all controlled as well.
And
the control goes very deep, and it's the people in the background that worry me. Trudeau's a figurehead, so is Jagmeet Singh. The previous caller saying that the NDP, but I think Jagmeet Singh may have shot his political career in the foot by especially with in terms of the trucker, going with the voting for the brutal put down of it. I mean, that was brutal.
Well, sir,
those
I
tough guys
really
should
hope
maybe.
you're right about that. I really hope you're right about that. I really do. Because
you mean about Jagmeet Singh shooting his political career or flushing it down the toilet?
Yeah, because I mean, the left side, the mass formation psychosis side, they absolutely love a complete disaster of a politician. Like, just look at Joe Biden rates.
Oh, yeah. Well, Dr. Robert Malone explained it beautifully. He said, 1930s Germany, these were well-educated people, and they loved Hitler. And he said they'll never, when he came out of it, when their country was destroyed and, it was in ruins and half of it belonged to the Soviet Union, they will not own up to the fact that they treated Hitler like a rock star in today's terms. They worshipped him, but they would not own it. They would say, "Oh no, I hated him." There was an interesting documentary about 20 years ago, and it was a Jewish family that survived, that got out of Germany just in the nick of time, and they said, "Oh, neighbors of ours that used to, be friends. Once things really started getting bad in Germany in the late 30s, they said, "Oh, did they befriend you? Keep on being friends?" They said, "No, they threw a brick through our front." So. It's just it's the same. Like people who were normal, sane people that got the jab. If they were friends of yours and you didn't get the jab, all of a sudden you were like a pariah. Does that sound familiar? Like, it's just they were like Trudeau has divided this country along so many lines. It's ridiculous.
I'll be the first to admit here. I'll be the first to admit here. I have lost family members, cousins that I've talked to my whole life. And they're gone.
Yeah,
those relationships dead. 30 years down, 32 years down the drain.
And there's an interesting story saying that now that they're releasing all the safety data, it's a case of the medicine was worse than the disease.
Well, we have to be careful about what we say here.
Yes.
We're on YouTube.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. But
so you could get us banned.
I'm sorry.
No, you're
no.
fine.
Well, this is all data being released by the CDC, by a federal court judge.
Yeah, YouTube don't care.
Well, who fact checks the fact checkers?
Well, as I was saying, it's not about facts anymore, though, is it? And that's why we need to talk about what's real. These are not realists.
The real thing is no, there's censorship, and that's all part of what was done in the past.
Yes,
to put it bluntly. But I don't want to get you guys banned. So that was just my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with it.
Well, here's what I hear. I think you hit something very important. I think what you also just said ties in. Did you hear the last caller, what he had to say? He said, "Why do you think that?"
I heard about half of it. I think by the time I got through.
His question to us was, why is it that so many people aren't waking up to what's happening? And a big part of it
ties into the mass formation psychosis.
Yes,
30% will never. You could put all the data. You could have videos. You could have signed, affidavits, and they still won't believe it.
That's right. It's very difficult to break somebody out of their mindset once they think that they've come to a conclusion, and they think they've reached that conclusion on their own. Yeah.
And even if they do come over, they won't own it. They won't own that they, maybe broke relationships with friends, family, etc. And they just won't own it. And that's the sad part of it.
Yeah, we're going to move on because we've got calls stacked way up here. Thank you very much
thanks for your time, gentlemen.
Tony.
You too. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you so much for watching.
Yeah. And who do we have?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, who do we have on the line with us now? There's no name on the screen.
Hi, my name's Jody.
Sorry, what's your name? Joe?
My name's Jody.
Jody. Where are you calling from tonight, Jody, and what's on your mind?
Actually, I just wanted to talk about power for a second.
Sure.
And, as we're sitting here looking at the media onslaught, and there's always another issue to hide us from what's really going on in the world, truth being buried. I think it's time that we take stock of our personal power and our personal spheres of influence, because I hear a lot of blame, and then from the people that are doing the blaming, then they say, well, I don't vote because that doesn't make a difference.
Right.
Yep. And I think it's important that we see our responsibility in what's going on here. As a society, we've been asleep for a long time, as our education systems have been co-opted, the levers of power co-opted. Now we don't have a single clean politician left. That's why we're looking at Poilievre, because he may be the best hope to get rid of the NDP. You can call them liberal, you can call them what you want. You can call them conservative, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering what you think about that. What you think about maybe us, taking stock of what our influence is and what we can do, and, start actually, I'm not saying that you don't, because you're adding to the, the education sort of necessary to question the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
But people talk a lot of action, and yes, the truckers, man, they showed up, right? But look at what we put up with, and look at for how long we put up with it, and if you look even beyond COVID, we've been putting up with these types of changes, these obvious centralizations of power for quite a while. And people just sort of close their eyes and watch Disney, and, it's a bit of a rant, I know. I guess what I'm trying to say is I need to take stock of what I can do, and I need to start doing more. And,
I think this is more of a Rick question, but I really want to praise you for pointing out that, yes, there is a large proportion of the population that is to blame for this, that we have become too comfortable, and that has created what we have here. It's the old saying, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times.
Yeah, that's sort of a hopeful sentiment. It all being cyclical. Mm-hmm. But the truth is it's time. I think it's becoming obvious to a lot of people, including you guys, and probably most of the people listening. But the diligence and responsibility can't end. And on top of that, we need to do a better job of teaching it to our kids so that they can continue to have a watchful eye, right? Because they're totally vulnerable to every crazy story and narrative that's presented by, I hate these buzzwords, but corporate media, Disney, whatever they want to push, it's directly into their brains, because we're sitting our kids in front of screens, and they're being raised by government officials that we like to call teachers, who are also narrative pushers. And we're sitting and allowing that for the most part. We've really neglected to prepare kids for even understanding their own governmental systems. We've really failed, and now they're completely vulnerable to, as is obvious, any fad. Even if it's a fad of burning down cities in the ideas of racial justice, being supported by Mickey Mouse. Yes. So I just think that the accountability and responsibility we really need to push. Now, I won't keep you any longer. I just wanted to make one more point and see what either of you think about it. My rant is done. But it seems to me that the seat of power when it comes to the potential for actual freedom is the United States. And if the United States falls, then there is no longer a shield against this world government agenda. So it may be that without a congressional, Senate, and presidential sweep in the USA and a move towards populism, that all of our movements fail. Like what goes on there is so critical. Because with like, for example, Josh Hawley wants to put Canada on the religious freedoms watch list. Like that type of pressure helps a lot. And right now we don't have any countervailing force.
I'm going to challenge you with a thought.
Sure.
The last stand against globalism may not be the United States. It may actually be Russia.
Yes, that is a stand against globalism. Agreed.
And how ironic is that? How weird is that?
Extremely.
Yeah.
It's like taking Rocky IV and reversing it.
But the truth is, and this actually goes way back through history, I believe the globalists have already infiltrated the U.S. We have a globalist sitting in the White House right now. We have one sitting in the Prime Minister's office as well. Canada has fallen. The United States is pretty close to being gone. And the globalists have their sights set on Russia because it is the last major obstacle to absolute one world governance. And it's not about them being a democracy in the way that we think of a democracy being a democracy, but they are technically a democracy now. They're not the former Soviet Union. They're not the country that we remember from the Cold War era, although I think most people still view them that way. But they are absolutely taking a stand against woke politics. Putin is taking a stand against the globalists. He wants his country. He believes in Russia. As do the Russian people. They love their country.
Through the roof.
Right. They love their country. And they don't want to turn it over to a global government. Canadians, I think probably 50, 60% of them don't give a damn. As long as they get their...
I think you're right.
You know, it's like as long as they get their free whatever and they can go to Costco and get their Twinkies, it doesn't really matter to them that much. Canada's a different kind of country. But Russia. And then when Biden slips up and says that Putin can't remain in as the leader, he's got to be taken out of power, and he hints at regime change. I said last week when all of those mistakes were made in his speeches, I said, they say they don't want regime change, but they want regime change. It's a big load of crap. They're pushing into Ukraine. Why? Because they want that country. It's a strategic foothold for them right on Russia's doorstep. They want NATO in there. They want control of that country, and they have it in Zelensky. So what we're being told through the mainstream media is a very simplified, spoon-fed story to just help them justify going in and giving them a bunch of weapons and going even further if they want to.
To get rare earth minerals.
Yeah,
build more batteries and every other agenda of wealth at other people's suffering and slaughter.
Right. And the problem
no one's looking at Yemen,
Yeah, and I think the problem is our politicians and all these corrupt people who have their fingers into everything. They don't even really care who they're in bed with anymore. It can be a Nazi in Ukraine. It can be a terrorist in Syria today. And then tomorrow they'll shoot that same person in the head if they're in their way of making a profit. There's so much corruption. And we are so asleep over here as citizens because we've been so insulated and isolated. We don't even know what these people have been doing in our name in other countries for so long that it's not surprising we have the mess that we have on our hands. And even now, people are unaware. They don't get it. And of course, it's easy to fool people and tell them lies when they They don't even have a grounding in history. And
All
they
you
don't.
need is a doctorate.
Yeah, that's right.
And they'll believe you.
That's right.
You know, it's sick. Like you think Theresa Tam's a doctor? She's not a doctor. She's a bureaucrat. Doctors treat patients.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But she's got that doctorate. I agree with you, Rick, 100%. I have a 90-year-old grandmother, and there is no way that she can grasp the idea that these institutions have failed her. And you look in the U.S. at their civil rights institutions, and every institution, Canada, U.S., and I think you're right. I think the infiltration, well, I'm not going to get into the China stuff. That's a whole other ballgame, because Russia is sort of step one here, and who knows how that's going to go. But I'll leave on a white pill. At least in the States, I see for the most part, they have a judiciary that makes the right decision. And once it gets up to the Supreme Court level, and I know they make mistakes, but they usually err on the side of freedom, right? Or they leave it open to further challenge. And conservatives, for lack of a better term, because that's classic liberals, that's libertarians, that's conservatives, anyone that's not leftist, you know, the white supremacists, of all skin colors, you know, conservatives. You know, I don't know. I'm not going to rant here. I'll just let you go and say that I do see some signs of the United States. Like, we all know the Republican voter registrations have flipped. There's now 6% more Republicans registered than Democrats, which is historic. So it looks like, unless the elections truly are a complete and utter sham, that power will be regained. And I really believe that the U.S. population is far further ahead in unraveling their brainwashing than we are. Like, they've got to be pushing 60% awake over there. We're still 40. We're about 40 over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will agree with you on swinging red for sure. The pendulum is swinging, but to what direction and what is going to be their move and response to that? Because there are Republicans that are not out for our best interest either, and they are part of the WEF. So I mean, it's like,
yes, but they can't make it. They can't make it. When, I mean, there's so few. Like, the Tea Party is where it started, right? Yeah. And that's where your Jim Jordan's, and there were scumbags in there too, but it was a party of the people, and that has only expanded. And now name recognition, like, everyone knows who's running everywhere in their districts in the U.S. now, and then they share who the anti-populists are. And even if Trump gives them support, the voters don't go there. We all know that. Trump gets booed if he says the wrong thing. Trump is a puppet of his people. It's not the other way around. People think Trumpsters are cultists. No, it's the fact that when the Trumpsters say, Donald Trump changes his tune, which is what a politician should do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyway, I really love your guys' programming. I've been listening since you were sort of feeling things out with what maybe to talk about. And I love the fact that you've all gone all in and opened the spigots and just let the thoughts flow. It's a wonderful thing. And I think you're making a very positive change out there.
Thank you.
So
and
thank you for your service.
And thank you for everything you're doing too, and for calling in. It's been a great conversation. And let's move on to Jean Marie. And you're in the studio. How are you tonight?
Hi, Rick. This is Justine Marie.
Oh, Justine. Okay.
New York City. Yes. Hi.
Welcome
and hi,
back.
Brendan, to you. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hopefully I'll sound a little more intelligent tonight than my rambling from the last time I called. But my intention was to call in and focus a little bit more on Biden specifically. Obviously, I'm here in the U.S. So with his obvious mental decline and his mental ineptitude, for lack of a better term, I've heard a lot of people, well, why don't we invoke the 25th Amendment in the Constitution, which I'm sure, as you know, Rick, when a president is found to be mentally incapable of holding office, that becomes an option.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually think that's one of the worst things that could happen, because then we get stuck with Kamala Harris.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is, as a couple of your callers said, you know, these people that are in these seats of power are nothing more than puppets. And it doesn't really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's sitting in that seat, whether it's Biden or Harris or God forbid, Pelosi. But I did want to touch on, because I was listening to these other callers, and one of them asked, or one of the first callers asked, why aren't more people waking up? And one of your other callers mentioned the mass formation psychosis, which is definitely, I believe, a factor. I see that. And that's more on a collective level. On an individual level, there's also something called cognitive dissonance, which I heard you touch upon. And one of your other callers also, what I liked what he said about, each of us has responsibility to be doing what we can. And, a lot of it comes about just as individuals, as we go about our normal day, having conversations with people. Yeah. I know sometimes, in our own families or with our circle of friends, that may be the most difficult people to have conversations with. But, maybe when we're at the grocery store or, in my case, I'm currently working from home. I'm doing online tutoring until this whole psychotic episode comes to an end and I can go back to my profession as a licensed massage therapist. So, sometimes the opportunity presents itself for me to talk to my students online. And I'm talking to people all over the world, thanks to technology. You were talking earlier, Rick, about technology. Mm-hmm. So that gives me an opportunity to have these conversations. But I also wanted to say, Rick, I agree with you 150% what you said about the last great hope we may have against globalism being Russia. And that's why we see this information war being waged against them. There's no question in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes. I'm sorry, the information war is the only one they seem to know how to fight right now. They don't seem to be able to fight any other one.
Isn't it, sorry, Brendan, isn't it ironic though, that what we're doing is rearming Russia or Germany and then telling them to go through Poland and invade Russia?
It's like everything in reverse. Crazy.
Yeah. We're repeat of World War II, right?
Yeah. And, on my mother's side of the family, my mother was Jewish, and her parents and grandparents all came from there. They left Poland. Some of them escaped and some of them didn't, unfortunately. So, I'm very closely connected to that. But it's amazing how, when we draw those connections, and what we're talking about, and I know what we're talking about, but you say it to other people, they automatically jump to 1939 Germany as opposed to 1933 Germany. And they fail to realize that there was a progression, towards fascism.
Yes.
You hit the nail right on the head there, because a lot of people, they get bitter about it. The Holocaust is a very atrocious thing, and it's not nice to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about millions of dead people. It's atrocious, and it's very sad. But you're absolutely right that it does a great service to people who have been sacrificed and have been severely harmed when we don't pay attention to the early markers of what had happened to them.
Exactly. Well, it's like everything else, even in terms of conversation. Well, a lot of it's online conversations, which is why I think we have to really get back to, speaking with people face to face, right? Because so much of the big tech and the social media, it does encourages this polarization in so-called discussion and conversation, where people don't even understand how to have nuanced conversations anymore. It's like, it's non-existent. And even in myself, I'm not a great conversationalist. I feel I do better when I have time to write things out and think about what I'm going to say.
I would beg to differ. I think you're a lovely conversationalist. You have you brought some excellent points here. Yes.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. Thank you.
This is Brendan.
Brendan, I'm sorry.
It's okay. But I got to ask you, because you were on the show last time and you said that you used to be a card-carrying Democrat before. And
yes. Well, technically, I still am. I haven't changed that, but because I'm deciding what to do. And believe me, it's not because as I said the last time, I've had my awakening. But we have I live here in New York, and in New York State, we don't have our primary until June. And I'm actually trying to think strategically if it makes more sense for me to remain registered as a Democrat for the primaries, which little good that's going to do, I don't. Because then, in the elections, I don't actually have to change my registered party to cross and vote, if that's what I choose to do. And believe me, I'm definitely leaning towards that. So, yeah.
What was the straw that broke the camel's back with that, if I can ask? Because you're not the first caller that has did that. I mean, I made mention earlier. We had somebody call in before, and they said they had never voted before. And
I voted all my life. Well, that would be I think there were 2 elections that I missed, and I don't mind telling my age. I'm 58 years old, so I've been voting.
I'm just very fascinated with the thought process on the changing sides, and I'm not criticizing it, but I want to know more about it, because I don't think enough people are talking about it.
Well, it's like everything else. It's a little bit of a difficult thing to talk about. I'm actually afraid to talk about it, because I'm afraid no matter which side I'm talking to, one side is going to beat me up for sort of having awakened, and the other side is going to beat me up for where I was before. But I'll just say this, that I would say all the years that I voted, I've almost always been a registered Democrat. There was a period of time where I registered as an independent, and then I switched back again. And I philosophically and in terms of social, social philosophy, I always had a bent towards being more on the left, liberal, or what I thought was liberal, which I'm realizing now, which I really always was more of a classical liberal, which I guess now would be considered conservative. And that's another thing that trips us up, is all these labels, right? But the thing is, to be more direct to your question, Brendan, the thing that really broke the camel's back for me was Canada and the Freedom Convoy. And again, if you ask me, well, how did I don't even remember what the hell I was doing. All I know is one night in late January, early February, I found one of the live streamers on YouTube, and I was like, what is this? And I started watching, and I was just just so uplifted with what I saw. And I get very emotional about it. The love, the camaraderie, the quest for free. I mean, you guys know even better than I do. Any of us who experienced that, and then of course, watching what happened at the end was just absolutely horrifying, appalling. And then, not being someone who's been an avid viewer of mainstream media, especially lately in the last 2 years because of all the craziness, I was still keeping an eye towards it and realizing that nothing was being said. I mean, and more specifically, nothing in the United States mainstream media was being ignored, with the exception of Fox News here and there, which in and of itself was a little bit of a shock to my system, right? Then seeing, then also, watching more and more and getting turned on to more live streamers, and them talking about the way that your state-run media was covering it and how negative that, and I was just, that was just, then you could say, like, the way a lot of biblical people would say, the scales really fell from my eyes. The blinders came off. And as someone who's always been skeptical of authority and mainstream media, all I can say is I didn't know what I didn't know until it was shown to me. And I guess if there's any hope in that,
there's a lot of hope in that.
If I could wake up, right? Because a lot of people might want to, beat me up, and I hate to admit it, but I did vote for Biden, right? And it wasn't really a vote for Biden; it was to vote Trump out. And I thought I had my reasons, at the time. And of course, now I'm questioning a lot of that. And if you want to say that I had a part to play in, where we're at.
Absolutely not. And in fact, I'm going to say that I'm not throwing any endorsements. We have in Ontario, Canada, which is a neighboring province to New York. Well, New York is a state. We're buddies, kind of. Anyway, I'm not throwing any endorsements out publicly on this channel because I want people to figure it out for themselves. And whatever decision that you come to and that you have came to, you're on the right path because you're asking yourself the real questions, I think.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for that, Brendan. I appreciate that. But I guess the best that I can say is that if somebody like me could wake up, then there is hope,
Well, we appreciate you saying that. And we're going to move on because we do have calls stacking up in the queue. But thank you so much for joining us on the program. Please call back too, because it looks like you might become a regular caller on here, which is great.
And hopefully, I'll be able to speak more eloquently.
No, you're great. You contributed a lot tonight, so
yes,
we appreciate it.
I think you have. I think you have a very important story, and I think you should tell it as many ways as you can. So.
Yeah, let's move on to Williams Lake.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. You have a
Bye-bye.
great night. Who are we speaking with now? Someone in Williams Lake.
Oh, hi guys. It's Darcy calling again. You were kind enough to have me on when Trudeau was here with the residential schools.
Yes. Welcome back.
Thank you. I agree with the gal that was just talking to you that it was the truckers that woke me up, and thank goodness that over the last 8 years, I've been too busy doing than watching. And so I really was looking at life from a very neutral, busy, stance until I saw that as well. But the reason why I called is over the civic thing. What can we do? How do we get involved, civically, starts from grassroots, etc. And as many of the Maverick tribe talk about on the chat is, how do you wake people up? We can plant seeds, we can have conversations and all that, get more civically minded. And it reminded me of about 25 years ago when I went to the local I was invited to the municipal council. And we were doing our own cardboard recycling at the family business. And the local recycling group that they had put in had folded, and they wanted to know what to do with cardboard. So I was invited to come in and talk to them about that. So I did that. And then when I went to leave, the mayor at the time said took me by the shoulder and said, just wait a minute. He said, you should really run for civic politics. And I said, well, why would you say that? And he said, well, because you're well spoken, you can make an intelligent conversation, and you kind of need that on in the civic stuff. And so I paused for a minute, and then I thought to myself, from what the conversation was amongst the group there, I said, well, I don't really think that'd work for me. And he says, well, why not? And I says, because I'm not into my ideas. I'm really into listening to everybody's ideas. And if somebody's got an idea better than me, I'm the first person to go with it. And he shakes his head a little bit, and you can tell he's thinking, and he goes, yeah, I can see what you mean. And so it was like, it just sort of went in and out at the time until our conversations recently about that sort of thing. So how do you get by that? How do you, I mean, that was 25 years ago. I was a lot younger at that time.
So what's the question exactly? What is it you're wondering about? Is it?
Well, I'm just, how we ask you guys, how do we change things? How do we get more involved? How do we boot out the ones we don't want in office? How do we do these things? And if you think back years, you can think, well, it was already corrupt at a lower level, really.
So here are my thoughts. Can I share this with you? This is
you bet.
We all need to get involved and engaged, and that means maybe you run for office, maybe you don't, but get involved with somebody who is and support them. Find people who want to fight for freedom and support them. Get involved with political parties. It's not hard. If you do, you can help. Your voice then becomes important because you can influence what a party's platform is. If you go out and get involved, you can help select the candidate that runs, and you can research who these people are and make sure that they're solid and that they're going to fight for freedom and that they're genuine people. And if you're part of, say, a riding association, you can hold those people accountable if you become involved to some degree, depending on the party and the internal structure. But by being involved, and here's the other thing, it's not just federal and provincial. We need to get involved at the school board level, municipal councils. The left has been doing it for decades, putting their people in there, putting someone in who's the mayor of a city. There's more power at the municipal level than people realize. When the provincial governments imposed these mandates, mask mandates, vaccine passports, lockdowns, all of that stuff, the administration of that all goes down to the municipalities. It's enforced by bylaw officers. If you're on council, if you have an entire city council of freedom fighters, then they will fight for freedom at the local level. Maybe when the next time Doug Ford says you're going to lock down every small business in your town, and if anybody opens, you're going to send your cops over there and bust their heads and give them all tickets. Well, maybe if you're on council, you just don't allocate enough budget to send any bylaw officers over there or to have the cops go because they're too busy fighting real crime. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, Rick, and therein lies the dilemma. So you've got people that want to do the right thing, that go in and try and make a difference and have a voice and all that. And then you've got all the bullying that goes on in that process.
And you know what? And it's time to say, I'm not going to put up with it anymore. That's where I'm at.
Well,
don't bully me. Don't bully me. I won't take it anymore.
And,
I just will not.
I
Brendan knows.
Well, you and I are
He's
cut
seen me.
from the same cloth.
Yeah.
We're cut from the same cloth then, because I worked in non-traditional trades, and so I worked with men most of my life, and I really appreciated the bluntness. That, this is the way it is, or this is my opinion, or whatever, and then you could have a conversation about it, and then it was over.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've discovered recently, and I live a little ways out, so I can't, and with the price of fuel, I can't just drive back and forth. Sometimes I can't drive. I have to have a good day to be able to drive.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've been doing, I'm a gardener as well as many other things, but I've been planting seeds. So recently I had to go to some of the hospitals my local hospital, and one that was about 3 hours out of town. And so I hadn't really been out since before Christmas. And so to see the people still asleep or still in fear was really, really, really hard to take. And so when I was in the hospital, I took the opportunity to make a few comments to people around. You know, one guy asked me, oh, well, you know, what do you do? And I said, well, I used to do body work and I know all about masks. Mm-hmm. I said, you know, I don't understand why Dr. Bonnie doesn't, you know, get out a CO2 meter and put it under her mask and show everybody there's nothing to be scared of. Well, I know why, because the CO2 meter would go off the deep end and everybody would be freaked out. So conversely, in the local hospital, I have some seniors that I love and that I take care of as well. And so I had to go into the hospital. And so they said, well, and I do put the mask on in the hospital because I don't want a confrontation, but it's basically just holding my chin up. And the girl at the front said, well, you know, your mask's not on properly. And I said, well, neither's yours, because she had it under her nose. And I do have a fair loud voice. Maybe it's ear damage from working in the body shop. I don't know. But anyway, I have a fair loud voice. And there was lots of people in the hospital, all masked up, of course. And so I said, well, neither are all the staff over there. They don't have their masks on. So then when I went in to get the senior that I went to pick up, everybody was looking at me, and I looked at everyone in the eye, and I said, yeah, this mask thing is ridiculous. The air in a hospital is the cleanest air going. Goes through filters and everything else. And so I went to the front, brought her back, and on the way out, I said to the gal, I said, okay, can you tell me where the bio bin is? And she looked at me and she goes, oh, bio bin? And I said, well, yeah, we got to wear these masks over our mouths. There's all this politics in it, you know, we got to keep everybody safe and all that. So now I'm walking out of the hospital. What am I supposed to do with this biohazard? And that woman just kind of looked at me. So politics, the politics of everything just seems like, Rick, like it's just penetrated everything. And when you try and say anything, and especially now with these legislations that are going through to quell our free speech, where we're guilty before we're innocent, without even due process and stuff. I think, well, gee, how do you start from the ground up, even in the neighborhood, when you try and talk to people in your neighborhood that know you? You know, they say, oh, well, you know, I'm happy to have Alexa turn my water on, or I'm waiting for my fourth one, and this kind of stuff. And so, you know, I don't know. I just find it tough. I mean, you can be a seed plant.
Two things.
Yeah, quickly, because we have people waiting, Brendan.
Yeah, so I'm going to make when it comes to helping with politics, it could be a much more macro level than that. You could pick someone you support, and you can offer to drop signs off for them at houses for them. The amount of small little jobs could be even helping out with the convention or a speech and setting up chairs. So there's littler things, even littler than that you could do that can help bring your candidate success. Secondly, you were talking about bullies in politics. Yes, politics is flooded with bullies. In fact, most of them are all bullies. But let me tell you something. You can't have human nature without bullies in it. It exists. It's ingrained in our DNA. This is not some postmodernist thing that was just invented. There's always been bullies. There are chimpanzees who are bullies. Like Rick said, we got it. It's something that's in life. We got to put up with it, but we don't have to put up with it on a personal level. And that's how you shut it down. They're going to leave you alone after you shut it down, and they're going to go find somebody that they can pick on.
Don't give an inch. Stand your ground, because there's no more ground to give. That's my position. And
I'll tell you what happens to chimpanzees who bully too much. All the other chimpanzees get together and decide that they don't like that person anymore, and they get rid of them.
Well, that's sort of what happened behind the buildings back in the day in elementary school. But I will say, in closing, that anyone that watched Dances with Wolves years ago remember that they called the young girl. They said, "What's her name?" "Oh, she stands with a fist." Well, You either see me standing with a hammer or standing with a cane, but they won't be they won't be able to bully me very easily.
Well, thank you so much for calling in again tonight. We have to move on to Julio, who's been waiting for quite a long time. So we appreciate
Okay,
the
peace out.
conversation. All right.
We appreciate
Looking
you.
forward to the next call. Call back again. And we have with us now Julio. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Kingston, Ontario.
Okay.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome. What's on your mind tonight?
I can't. The transmission is kind of slow, so I beg you to forgive me. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you. Your program is fabulous. I'm 150% with you. And what I want to talk today is about people saying that they are awake. And, and excuse me, it makes me think that they think they are awake, but they are not. They have a long way to go. But anyway, and what I hear is people ranting, complaining, talking about little problems, going on and on. But I don't hear people with solutions. And by solutions, I'm talking about, well, we all know what's going on. Not all, but what's going on is grave. And we have to look for solutions and stop talking about the war. Stop talking about corruption. We know what's going on. So now we have to look for solutions. I'm not going down the rabbit hole, but I have a few solutions that I would like people to think about it.
Okay,
For instance, why people don't ditch the phones, the smartphones? That's one of the problems we are having, and grave problem. Why people don't use cash and ditch the credit card? Why people have smart things at home? Why don't they get rid of them? They should stop watching the main media. That's our problem. And most of all, when you go to the supermarkets, for instance, you should avoid to go to the self-checkouts. Like, go with the cashier. And that way you have somebody working there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's those little things. Yeah. It's difficult, though, for people to do some of those things because it is a digital society now. And if you don't participate, then you can't participate in some things. So for people's jobs today, because of the way society is, so it's a challenge. But what people can do is get involved in what is becoming parallel societies, a parallel society.
I was trying to get at that. Yeah.
Yeah. That is happening. And I think we're going to have someone come on once they're comfortable enough to talk to us about what they're doing. They're helping to organize a parallel society in their community. And I know that here, even where I am, there are people who are involved in that parallel community where people support each other, find business opportunities that way to help each other survive in the face of all this tyranny and these restrictions placed upon the unvaccinated. And
I'm one of those.
Yeah.
One of those persons. We are trying to organize parallel society. Yes.
So, I mean, immediately that's something that people can do to survive.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then to affect change, though, it has to be done peacefully. It has to be done lawfully. There's no other alternative to that. It must be that way.
No,
Because,
I agree.
right? So that means you have to get involved. So there's some sort of political solution. So you have to get engaged politically to get the right people elected. And you need to, what was the other thing I was going to say? I lost my train of thought. But
get people elected. You need to work together to get people elected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's basically it, you know, and we need to launch in some cases our own lawfare and challenge these mandates or laws that are passed that are unconstitutional, that infringe on our rights. So we need to find ways to fight back that way as well. Lawfare, political activism, and then finding a way to survive day to day in the face of all the suppression.
I agree.
And these aren't these aren't instantaneous things. These are things that take.
It will
years.
take time because this political juggernaut that is steamrolling over us right now, they've been working on this for decades, really since the end of World War II. It began.
Yeah.
And now it's
I agree.
to this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but
I agree.
we're going to move on. Julio, please call back again. This was a great conversation. We do have a lot of other calls kind of lined up.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. And keep fighting for freedom out there.
You're heading in the right
I will.
direction.
You betcha.
Okay. And we're going to move on to Jack. Jack, where are you calling from tonight?
Calling from Sudbury.
Well, welcome.
Hey.
Home of the Big Nickel.
You got it.
That's from up in my end of the woods from where I'm from. So.
Yeah, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, I'm trying to take things a little bit off topic, but still in topic. The Academy Awards. The slap that resounded in the world.
The slap around the world. Okay, yeah.
How many cameras do you think were there, available?
That'd be a Rick Walker question. I'd say
well,
5.
there was one camera that mattered the most, and that was the one from the television network that broadcast that around the globe via satellite and the internet.
Doesn't that look fake?
Yeah, I think it looks fake.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm aware of it. I didn't watch the program. I've seen the clips. I try not to. I'm trying to not care, and trying not to pay much attention to it. And that night, we didn't really even talk about it on the program, because I think all I said about it was I don't care, because it is a distraction. And at the end of the day, these celebrities are a curse upon us because they've been given this huge voice in our society, and most of them are using it for political purposes that I don't agree with. And for the most part, they're self-serving, and most of them are not very well educated, but people put a lot of stock in what they say, and they do influence people. And that's why I just didn't really want to give it even much more attention here. But it's something that I guess is difficult to ignore when so many people are tuned in and engaged and looking at it. But I think that matters in the overall scheme of things about as much as the Housewives of Beverly Hills episode that my mom likes to watch. So,
but I think you're trying to get with something here, though. Do you have a point with bringing up the smack and how it was fake or appears to be apparently fake?
It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, they're
Absolutely.
so you think that it was done intentionally so that we get our minds off something.
Exactly. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, Jack. Appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you
have
as
a
well.
good Sudbury. Have a great Sudbury Saturday night.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah. And even though I'm not really engaged with the whole Hollywood slap thing, I do appreciate Jack calling in because he has a very valid point. I think, whether intentional or not, it has become a distraction, and whether it wasn't intended that way from the beginning, that's certainly what the media has done with it. So that's where we're at with that. Yeah. Thank you again, Jack. Have a great night. Take care.
I'm sure Will Smith will be at home wiping his tears with $1 million bills.
Yeah, banned, I guess, now for 10 years from attending the Oscars again. So we'll see if that comes true. 10 years. I bet you it doesn't hold. They'll forgive him and bring him back. He'll
of course
get rehabilitated. He'll get parole. If you can support us, go to freedomreporters.com. We'll be back right after this brief message.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies.
How many callers are
Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And we're going to move on to our next caller, but you can donate to us and support our work here at freedomreporters.com. You can click the hot link in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions. Like, share, subscribe, ring that subscription notification bell so that you don't miss any of our videos. And yeah, we sure do need your help because we have more stuff to do here and a lot more work. And I was thinking today, you know what, Brendan, and we're going to make a promo with this. Resistance is not futile. It's essential. Because we're all essential. Everyone is essential. And we need to resist this march to tyranny. We have to do something. And this is what we're doing. We're fighting the information war right here. So join us. Be part of the Maverick family. Support our work. Donate. Subscribe. Call in. Engage. And as we were saying to one of our callers just moments ago, if someone comes along and tries to bully you, my advice is peacefully, lawfully, respectfully stand your ground. Don't give an inch. There's no more ground to give. They've taken everything that they can. And if we give any more, we're right off the cliff. So don't back up anymore. There's no place to back up, folks. Prepare your arguments, get your words straight, and then just give it right back to them in a logical, respectful way, but don't give in. I don't go picking fights, but when somebody comes around and tries to get up in my grill, I stand my ground. I don't give in.
He does.
Not anymore.
He does.
Mm-mm.
Me and Rick have been in the belly of a libtard hell, so we've seen it. We're not joking here.
Yeah, we have. Let's move on here and see who we have in the queue. I don't know what the name is because there's not one on the screen here. Who do we have with us now? You want to talk about Giant Pharmacy? It says
Darlene.
Darlene, welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Sudbury.
Oh, cool.
We're on a roll.
Cool, eh?
Yeah, another Sudbury person.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. I'm calling, I've been listening to you guys since November of 2021. and finding Canadian information accurate. Canadian information, I think, has been really difficult. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Now, the reason I'm calling in is that in November 2021, I worked for the federal government. So, I was collecting thousands of dollars every day, literally. But when they approached me and they wanted me to fill out this form about vaccines and things like that, it was a Zoom call. So I said, well, really, that's none of your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're my employer. You're my boss. What do you want that for? Well, we're taking this route that everybody's got to be vaccinated. I said, well, doesn't that sound really weird to you? I said that I need to have that to work here as I'm a remote worker, right? And she says, well, no. I says, I get side effects from everything. I said, I take an aspirin. I can't go to the washroom. I said, so for me to just go out and take a vaccine I don't know nothing about, I said, that really concerns me.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, you don't have to take it. It is your choice. I said, well, that's great to know. She said, but you can't work here anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
That is not
Spoken like a true fascist.
So,
yeah.
Exactly. And so I said, I have rights. I'm a Canadian. You can't do this to me.
Right.
Oh, no. She said, it's not that we're not giving you a choice. You have a choice.
Yeah.
I said, well, if you think you're going to fire me, I'm not bringing you my laptop. I'm going to go in and I'm going to go to work every day. She said, well, just cut off your feed.
Well, that's nice.
Right. And I said, you know what? I said, you can't fire me because I said, until the end of this contract, you can lay me off, but you cannot fire me because you signed a contract for me to come and work until this date. And I said, if you don't comply with that, I said, I'm not a rich person. I said, but I bet you there's lots of lawyers out there that would want to hear what's going on. So they let me work the end of my contract and then they laid me off.
Yep.
So then I started watching you guys and started learning about what this vaccine is, what it does to people, and what its benefits are. And I couldn't find the benefits. I kept searching for months, November, December, January. I kept looking for the benefits, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I couldn't find any.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any. My son is a school teacher and so is his wife. Mm-hmm. So I called him up. I said, Jay, please don't get that vaccine. I said, from what I've been seeing, it's something in it. It's really not good for us. It's not good for me.
I should caution you that we are on YouTube and they will ban the channel if we go too far down this road.
Shoot. Okay, well, we won't go down that road.
Just be careful how you
But
say
in any
what we need to say here, okay, is that the vaccine is fantastic. And it's easy.
Fantastic. If you want to go get it, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And as you can see from all of the charts on the case count, that's really, really high right now and climbing, you can see that it works great. So everybody should get it. Absolutely. Go get the fourth one because, the first two, which we were told were going to be like 80, 90, 95, 97% effective. It worked so great that you should go get the fourth one. I'm just saying, go do it.
No, he did. He's fully vaxxed, and so is his family.
Yeah.
But my concern was that now they're all fully vaxxed. The whole family has COVID now.
Yep. Because it works great.
So I was so concerned. And the same thing, my girlfriend, she's a nurse at the hospital. Mm-hmm. And not a nurse, she works at the hospital. She does things there. And she said she's fed up of wearing the mask.
Yep.
She said, I think the masks are making me sick. I have to wear it all the time, and I'm always running around. She's very energetic, this lady. Like, I'm 61, and she's 50-something, and this girl runs around like she's 15 years old. you know, and like there's so much going on out there for the people. Like these are fully, you know, good vaccinated people that are waking up and they're angry. They're not like when I went and I did research and, you know, if you want it, you get it. They're not like that. These people that are waking up, I would like to say that they're peaceful and level-headed, but a lot of people that are waking up are really bitter. And it kind of, it scares me that they're not going to take the right route. Like not people I know, but people that are, you know, they were really believed the government, they believed the doctors, they believed the police. Like these are all things I believed in as well.
Well, that's
all
when,
these things.
After you've been duped, your reactions are usually going to be really angry or upset, or you're going to bury yourself in the lie even further to reject the idea that you were duped. One of the two.
Well, that's the thing. Like even if you wake up, we've got all these tyrants in my house. These politicians, they think that's their house. No, that's my house. I'm 61. I've been paying for that for a long time. I've been working since I was 12 years old. Right?
Yeah.
That's my house. And these people that are running that house, they put me out of work. So now, like I'm in a situation where I want to help people like Maverick News, people like, you know, other places that tell the truth, and they give people choices. Like, you want to get the vaccine? Go ahead. It's really good. You know, Mr. Trudeau says it's good and it's for the good of everybody. You go do that. That's, you know, those people that once they wake up, our country's going to be already gone.
It's already gone. It is gone. We have to fight to get it back, but it's gone. It's gone.
We can still drive our cars a little bit, you know, because I know they want us not to have our cars. And here in Sudbury, you can't buy an electric car. Like, come on.
No.
You know, like we're just a little bit bigger than the spit on a map. We're not that big at all. So, you know, they don't want us to drive our cars. They don't want us to live in our house. They don't want us to take care of our own medical. They don't want us to take care of our kids. But we can fight back.
Yeah.
Like, our kids don't have to go to the schools. They can school at home. We can watch what they're teaching them. And we can also get ourselves positioned in the school boards. We can get ourselves positioned in the lower government. Like, I only have a grade 12 myself.
Yeah.
You know, but like, I'm watching to see when the People's Party comes to Sudbury, or when the Blue Party comes to Sudbury. I'm watching these things, and that's my question to you, is if there's any way at all that you could report when these people are going to be in Sudbury, so we could go down and watch, because that information is not really that much available.
Yep. Well, we're going to try, and we have asked Jim Karahalios of the New Blue Party to join us on the program. We haven't been able to arrange that yet. Still have some calls out to him. Hopefully he gets back to us. I did speak to him on the phone. Just haven't been able to arrange it yet. He's been pretty busy. So I really do want to get him on here so that he can share his platform and his thoughts, and maybe even have some of you ask him some questions on the air. So that would be great if we could get him on. Working on that. Maybe within the next week we can arrange that. But we're going to move on to the next caller. Thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight. It's great to have people from Sudbury calling. I love
Thank you
Sudbury
very much.
Sudbury's a great town.
Northern Ontario
Well, thank
is
you
the
very much, guys. You and Brandon, thank you, and bye-bye.
All right, take care. We'll talk to you again.
Bonsoir.
Yeah.
Bye.
And we have Steve from Simcoe, Ontario, and a couple of other callers. Please stand by if you're in the queue. We will get to you. A couple of people from the U.S. calling. Can't quite tell where, but we have Steve from Simcoe. How are you tonight, Steve?
I'm doing okay for an 87-year-old guy.
Well, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I've been watching for quite a while. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Are you aware of the HARP in Gavankar, Alaska?
The HARP in Alaska?
Yeah, it's High Altitude Aurora Research Program. That's a place where they got all these towers there in sort of an isolated spot. It's got one of the biggest generators in the world.
Okay,
High
yeah,
altitude.
yeah.
I'm aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are they doing to our weather?
Well, I can't say I know enough about it. I'm aware of it, but I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently. Do you have some insight for us?
It's putting out ALF, extra high frequency, microwave frequency, and I don't know what they're all doing. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the gas of life, carbon dioxide. We have all these climate change guys running around telling us the end of the world and all that junk.
Yeah, well, the sky's supposed to be falling. Yeah.
We didn't have the gas of life, we wouldn't have any food to eat.
You got it.
The Mounties are like to say, their motto is to maintain the right. I like to know when they're going to start.
You're kind of just going down the list, checking all the boxes for me. I'm with you.
Yeah, okay. That's about all I got to say, and I just wanted to keep it brief and sweet.
Well, you did that right on target and very focused. So clear and concise, and we appreciate you calling in tonight. Call back anytime. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, take care. Let's move on to our next caller. I'm not sure who we have, but you are calling from the U.S. of A. somewhere. Who do we
Evening,
have?
Rick. This is Pat.
Hi there.
Oh.
We first spoke after the fall of Ottawa, and I want to thank you for inspiring me for joining the People's Cup. That was the 3 best weeks of my life and future and hope here in the States. Sorry, my voice is cracking thinking about this. The 3 weeks running around D.C. really gave me hope to what's happening here and what I see. Going in and out of D.C., the response to us was crazy. There was probably 3 to 1 that were positive, waving to us, thumbs up, happy that we're there, versus the angry people who are flipping us off and yelling at us and getting in our way. So I think your take on where we're at as the States may be a little jaded or not quite as informed. I'm not sure if you're aware, but yesterday it came out in the news that a Republican won a New York State Senate or State House seat on Long Island by like a 2 to 1 margin.
Okay.
That was pretty crazy. It's just the states are alive. People are awake. They know what's going on. They see the failures that are being shown on TV every day. And I think while Russia is a key in this fight, don't count us out. We're not done yet.
I would agree with that. I don't think the U.S. is gone. Canada's gone. The U.S. is not.
Yes. But once we get it fixed here, we can help you get it fixed there.
I sure hope so.
Actually, Rick, you have said that before because we have talked about this a little bit privately, and you did ask me, "Is like, well, where do you think the midterms are swinging?" And I said, "I think they're swinging red at this point." And then you had hinted that, well, usually when things swing red in the States, they in turn make the same effect in Canada. So
yeah,
here's hoping. Here's hoping.
The midterms here, it's an ugly word to use, but it's going to be a bloodbath. It is going to be the biggest red tidal wave to hit since probably Reagan.
Yeah.
And it needs it. And that moves this conversation to another thing that I want to bring on topic that I hope I can make you think about. We as people in Canada and in the States need to stop thinking left versus right. We need to start thinking authoritarian statist versus libertarian.
That's right.
Because we have status on both parties. You know, for us, it's Mitt Romney. He's a shining example of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
That's right.
There's
That's
questions
exactly
about Pierre for you.
Yep. And many
You know,
others.
Where's Pierre coming from? He's got a gray past. He's not cut and dry, hardcore libertarian like Maxine is.
You've touched on something very important. The political landscape is being redrawn. The old graph of, left versus right, it doesn't really apply anymore. If it ever really did, it's a one-dimensional idea. When I get into another episode, when we start talking about fascism, communism, and the political graph, there are other graphs out there that I will present to show people other ways to think about this. And you've kind of nailed it. It's about authoritarianism versus freedom. That's really kind of where it is, but it's a little more complex, and we're going to get into that in a future episode. It's important for people to understand, and that's why even with parties like the People's Party of Canada, we've seen people from all political stripes come and join that party. And it took me a little while to wrap my head around it, but it's because of the civil liberties issues in front of us today, these issues of freedom. And so all these other issues of the economy and all these other things, they all tie in, but those key issues of freedom are galvanizing people in new ways. But we'll get into it more. You've really touched on it, and you're right on target.
And may I also say it's very, very refreshing to hear an American who's familiar with Canadian politics. So that's pretty cool.
Yes.
I totally put the blame on you two. you guys woke me up. The convoy woke me up, and I'm mid-century. That's as far as I'm gonna go. I grew up with Reagan and the Cold War and all that, and the memories of World War II and the stories, and I won't let it go there. This is the hill I'll die on, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I do remember speaking to you, and your phone call touched me the day that we spoke. It really, really did, because I can tell that you really carry, love for your country and freedom in your heart, and you mean it.
Well, and yours too. I've spent a lot of time up there in BC and Alberta and the Yukon, and I want to go back in the worst kind of way. I can't, because I'm a dirty individual.
Yeah,
it sucks.
I that's why I haven't been to the States. It's a little difficult for me to gauge things because I can't cross the border.
Man, it's got to get fixed. That's all there is to it. I mean, we can't be this close together and be this far apart at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and traditionally, America is, and Canada, we are brethren, thick and thin. Like we have to be united, even if
we're brothers. We're brothers from different mothers. That's all there is to it. And it's cool. I love it. I'll go up there all day long.
We got the same dad.
Yeah,
King George III.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Listen, the time is marching on. We've got a couple of other callers in the queue. So is it okay if we move on to the next caller?
Let me leave you with one thought when it comes to politics.
Yep.
Good cop, or in the game of good cop and bad cop, the state always wins. Think about that when you're looking at politicians.
Yeah.
I will. That's a interesting thing to think about.
I will ponder that tonight. Thank you for calling in. Call back anytime. We appreciate it.
Thanks. See ya.
Take care. Who do we have up here next? Who do we have with us? I can't. U.S. current.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Is this it?
Thank you for respecting my preferred pronouns.
And your co-host, what is is it Brendan's preferred pronouns?
Oh, I don't follow that narrative. I'm just
That's because he's just a big fat misogynistic racist homophobe.
Yep. That's me.
Yeah.
Very well. Gentlemen, good evening. Enjoying the show. Actually, Rick, you and I connected on Saturday night. I'm the gentleman who identifies as All-Seeing Heart, who is a toaster living in Antarctica.
How are you? Welcome back.
Thank you very much. And you know what? Brendan threw up a topic, can of worm. I'd love to talk about that topic probably another night, because I've actually been to the factory and, where that mechanism is made, and I could speak a lot about that. But one thing that I've been kind of, commenting on in the chat is, and also in particular to the other day when the woman called in and said that she had never voted in her life. Okay. When I heard that, well, you're talking to a man who's only voted once in his life. And I'll tell you why, because it can't be trusted. Now, I'm a solution provider, so let's discuss between the three of us. And please, I'm willing to listen to your input, because I've also shared it in the chat and no one's really chimed in. And that is that we need to foolproof voting, okay? And one way to do that, especially in 2022, is to video audit. And I'll take it a step further, and I'll open it up. They want to contact trace? Let's contact trace everybody going to the voting booth, okay? Video audit what checkbox they check, and then that's recorded forever. So after the vote, whether it's X or Y that gets voted in, we can go back like an accountant and audit. That's my point.
Sure.
I would start by saying I think it would be dangerous if the government were to find out who you vote for. I don't think if that's what you're getting at. Just to confirm, are you saying like it would foolproof voting if we indicated via video audit you could tell who you vote for?
Do you understand? If we cannot prove that someone has been lawfully elected by the people into the position they're in, then that's bunk.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair.
Whatever the system is, I think that improvements definitely need to be made, especially in the U.S., especially where voting machines are being used. We need better checks and balances to restore public trust. And right now, we don't have a lot of public trust in our elections. Maybe rightfully so. Regardless, if people don't trust it, then improvements need to be made anyway, because without public trust, the elections aren't worth spit anyway.
Yeah.
And they never have been.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's, I'm not gonna spend much time on here, but we're in trouble. We have a big problem. I'm providing a solution, which is we need to no more taking things for what a politician says is true, or if the polls say this is that. No. We need evidence. And, to be honest, I live in reality, and I'm pretty sure you guys do too, So in reality, there's something called evidence. It needs to be backed up by, I hate to use the word science, but science is a noble profession.
Hey, as long as it's not the science, because there is a difference between science and the science. So, yes.
And there's a difference, Brendan, between Scientology and the so.
Well, what we really are dealing with here today is scientism. It's
another good term.
It's scientism, because it's
a cult.
Yes, these left-wing fascistic dictators that are running things, they want to tear down religion. They want to remove that from society. They've been largely successful. And they want to replace, if you remove that, then what do you replace it with? You replace it with the state. and the state points to science and experts instead of priests or ministers or pastors, those become the people that the public is expected to look up to and look to for guidance. So it is in a way a religion, and all of these isms that surround this fascistic, communistic, authoritarian government structure that we have today, they all connect to this scientism, whether it's environmentalism, even feminism. All of these things connect, and they become part of the religion. And the people indoctrinated into it, which is the vast majority of the population at this point, don't even realize they're part of an actual religion. But they certainly are. And that's why if you don't wear a mask, it's heresy. If you say climate change isn't real, heresy. You're a sinner. And for YouTube's sake, climate change is real, masks work, vaccine, you should get extra shots, and it's fantastic. So, that's what I'm saying for YouTube, just to be clear.
Yeah, and you're correct.
But you see what I'm saying? And then if you deviate, there can be no room for dissent, because anyone who dissents gets crushed. If you're a trucker, crush him. If you speak out, if you're a farmer supporting a trucker, you crush him. Truth doesn't matter at that point either. All that matters is you go target those people. You get those people because they have, as Justin Trudeau says, unacceptable views. You're not allowed to have a different opinion anymore because it's a sin.
Right. And we are not going to stand for that.
No, don't give any ground anymore. There's no more ground to give.
Yep.
No, we're done.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I'll finish, I don't want to take up much time, but I'll just say that, there are not very many heroes in my life in the last few years or more. And you're talking to someone that's run a YouTube channel also since 2016 that's been a research project trying to figure out what the hell is the truth. Well, I've learned a lot, and we could probably have a conversation in another evening that'll last even longer. But honestly, James Topp, that guy, actions speak louder than words, right? And just like the truckers also motivated that guy. And another guy is that Artur Pawlowski. So 3 heroes that we can name right off the bat.
Yeah.
Truckers started something, right?
Yep.
Yep.
James Topp is doing something, and Artur, he just did something. Man, not many people would survive what he just went through. So let's keep optimistic, guys. We're on the right track. I'm blessed that, man, I'm participating in this conversation with you guys. Like, I enjoy actually tuning into you guys. And you're talking to a man that, quit TV and news and all that shit years ago and strictly focused on research. And today, what actually kind of spurred me to call in at first was when Brendan was talking about the topics and he said, Canadarm. Man, we'll have a conversation another day about that.
Okay, all right, we're going to move on because we do have some other calls and time is marching on. So we're going to take these calls quickly, but thank you. Call back anytime because we love talking to you. You're contributing a lot to the conversation. We really appreciate it.
And he remembers your pronouns. That was weeks ago.
Yes, very nice of him.
Monday.
All right, take care,
brothers.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
And Tyler from California, how are you tonight?
Good. I don't know if we remember, I was the one that was watching the video with the government summit with Klaus Schwab. Do you remember that?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. And hello, Brandon. This is the first time I met you, not in real life, like in the hello. So let me cut the chase. Yeah. So I was in the morning. I was scrolling up on YouTube, like just trying to, like a person has to, let me cut to the chase. So basically, you guys remember the video of about the Great Reset of 2030.
Okay.
Okay, so basically, let me see if I can find it. I'm trying not to waste your time. So let me see if I can find it. I was watching this video about, there it is. I was watching the video about the World Economic Forum's 8 predictions for the world in 2030. It's now a deleted video on YouTube. So that just shows me that what?
Go ahead. Is that 2030 on Mass, the movie?
No, it's on. It's from a YouTube channel I was watching. His name was Clyde Do Something.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
He's from your country as well. Yeah. So basically, there's no secret that the WF is a shitty corporate, if you know what I mean. And also, I also found out my governor, Gavin Newsom, he was also the graduate of the WF here in California.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That guy is a barrel of fun, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. He thinks he's perfect just because he's the nephew of Nancy Crackhead Pelosi. I call her a crackhead. And,
I prefer Trump's nickname for her, Crazy Nancy.
Yeah. Trump, I have no problem with, but Nancy, ugh.
Yeah, I know. Just looking at her.
Yeah. Well, I actually joked about call it the. I don't know if I could say this funny, but I call it the 1950s blow up doll because the way she puckers those lips, it looks like a.
Oh my. Well, listen, Tyler, we don't have much time left because it's getting late in the evening here.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So I think we're going to have to move on, take a quick call from Chris, and then wrap up for the evening, I think.
Last call.
Oh, yeah. That's all I'm going to say anyway. But all I'm going to say is that have a good night. And one more thing, be proud of who you are as a Canadian.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you be proud of who you are as a Californian
and
an American. And we appreciate you calling in again tonight.
And for the laugh. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Tyler.
No problem.
We'll talk to you again. You
have
call
a good
back.
day.
Okay, see you.
I will.
And we are going to move on and take this call from Chris. How are you this evening, Chris?
Hey, it is Trish.
Oh, Trish.
I'm not sure why you think always messes up my name, but I'm calling so that Brendan does not go to bed with the question in his head of why I have never voted.
Okay.
I don't want anybody going to, having their sleep kind of disrupted from that question.
Okay.
All right. Well, lay it on the line.
Okay. Okay. Well, I was going to email you guys, but I didn't have an email address for you. So I just wrote it down. So I'm going to make this quick so I don't keep up everybody's time. I'm going to read what I wrote.
Okay.
And then that'll just be it. Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
When I was in school, I was always told that only smart people were in politics. And I was always told that I was dumb. So I'm sure that played a role. As I got older, I always had an impression that the people in charge weren't really voted in, but more appointed. And the whole system was corrupt. So what would my vote do anyways? I also never really felt there was someone who I really aligned with their views. But if I am honest with myself, I may have been using that as a bit of an excuse so I would never have to learn about it. What my aha moment was when I was watching with the both of you and Carla when the E-Act was voted on, and I saw Carla crying, and I too was crying, and that made a shift. I'd been seeing more and more of what had been happening in the world in the last couple of years, but I never realized until that moment that maybe understanding politics was going to play an important role in contributing to change. It may have taken me a while to wake up to the reality of the importance of voting, but I am there now, and so no matter how long it took me to get there, that has helped me to see the importance of it as well. I appreciate you both and all you do to help people align with the truth. Some may take a little longer to get there, but there's truly hope that enough people will be able to shift and align with what needs to be done. And that's all I got.
Man, that's amazing. I was talking to the caller from New York, and I have to say I'm just fascinated with this phenomenon because it's never happened before. And for anybody out there, anybody can come to understandings with this stuff, and don't be discouraged. Don't let anybody keep you down. It's like Rick said, they've taken enough. There's nothing else to take. We're standing right here, and we ain't going nowhere.
Absolutely. Well, something Rick had said at the beginning of the program, too, that really, really hit me was that I personally did take my freedom for granted. It was so easy to just put my blinders on because it was just there. I didn't have to work for it. I didn't have to look for loopholes. And I need to put myself back out there and yeah, I'm not exactly sure what I'm trying to say, but that really hit me too.
Let me help you a little bit, Trish. People bled and died for our freedoms here. And we have betrayed them by taking that freedom for granted, especially in Canada, where the country has fallen. And in the United States, hopefully it doesn't come to that. But that is what has happened here. And we need to get engaged. I'm gonna maybe say something here now that's gonna start a huge nuclear war, figuratively, within this show. There's a guy out there, his name's Chris Sky. And I engaged with him at a political rally where he had a microphone and a PA system, and I was at the back of a crowd because I disagreed with him on one point, maybe a couple of points. And he had a bigger microphone and an amp, so he had the upper hand. But the thing I disagreed with was him standing up there telling people to not vote and to spoil their ballots. And he said, when have we ever voted our way out of tyranny? And then he stands there and he says to the people, never. And he's wrong. He's 150 years plus wrong. Because we have been voting our way out of tyranny in every election for the past century and a half until now. It worked for a long time, but we became complacent, jaded, spoiled, and forgot about the sacrifices that people made to give us the freedoms that we had. And now they're gone. And largely, some people don't even realize they're gone. And what few freedoms we have, they're preparing to take away from us with new legislation here in Canada and in the United States. We're seeing that in California right now, where the truckers are en route to protest that. And in other parts of the U.S. as well. This is a war. People need to understand that. We are at war. It's a new kind of war, a global war. This is a world war. And the only way we can change things is politically. So it's important to vote. The only reason they have the power they have, the only reason they've been able to do all of this is because we became complacent and too many people said exactly what you used to say. What difference does it make? It makes a difference, as we're seeing right now, because I don't recognize the country anymore. And that's because not enough people vote, and the other side, these globalists got too much power, and they've infiltrated our governments and our institutions and our corporations, and they've taken things over. But we have no choice. There's no only one way to go. It has to be peaceful, 100%. It has to be lawful. And while we still have the right to vote, we have to exercise that right and get engaged at every level. It's the only thing we can do. Because the alternative is unacceptable. And we can't support that. Because how can you have a peace? How can you advocate and achieve the creation or the restoration of a peaceful, lawful society that believes in and uses the rule of law as the foundation for your society if you violate all of those principles in order to get there? So we can't even entertain that. Political solutions are the only solutions we have. So I disagree with Chris Sky respectfully. And if he wants to come on this show and debate me on that or have a discussion, he's welcome to come on. I have other issues with him as well. And I've been attacked for it because he's become something of a religious figure for some people as well, I think. But he's a false prophet. We need to follow real leaders who are truly engaged, who have real solutions, who can lead us out of this mess. Strong leaders, with true hearts and true love of country. And we need to find those people, and we need to identify the false prophets and the politicians who are posers, members of the WEF who have infiltrated our government and pose as proud Canadians when in reality they're working to undermine the country.
Mm-hmm.
We can't have a prime minister who's a member of the WEF and pledges allegiance to them, or a deputy prime minister who has a clear conflict of interest. Who are you serving? The one world global government people or Canada? You're elected to represent Canada. And if you can't do that, then you have no business in those positions. And they're clearly, for anyone who cares to open their eyes, clearly they can see that they're not acting in good faith. They're working to undermine Canada. And they'll call you a fascist or a Nazi because they'll accuse you of being a nationalist. Well, you're damn right I'm a nationalist. I'm a proud Canadian, and I want my damn country back because I don't want to hand over the sovereignty of Canada to some unelected elite group that nobody in Canada even voted for. So that's why you have to vote. But you have to do more than that now. You got to fight. Like Brendan and I decided, what can we do best? We're doing this to get the message out and hopefully make people aware, get people engaged, and bring them closer to the truth as well along the way. And hopefully inspire more people like you've been inspired. But it's not us. We're just telling people stories and giving people a voice, giving people a platform. That's really all we're doing. And that's our job. Yeah, I inject my opinion, but you too.
It is you guys, though. It truly is you guys, because the way you explain something, the way you explain it makes so much more sense. And so it actually creates this synapses in my brain where I can put the pieces together. So when I am, learning more and I'm discovering more, it is the way that you guys say it. And I think that you guys have really encouraged a lot of people just by the way that you present the information.
Thank you. Appreciate that. But honestly, your calls inspire us and keep us going. Yeah. So it's us working together really as a team and a family, right? And Maverick. Since all this craziness started just over 2 years ago, Brendan and I, and I'm sure you'll agree, Brendan, we've met the best people, the greatest people, and there's been nothing but this huge outpouring of love around all of it. And you saw that in Ottawa, and you saw that with all of you've seen it with the convoys. It's incredible. The salt of the earth, man, the best people, the very best people. And we are a team and working together, and we're growing. We are growing. I just hope it's not too late. because we're going to keep on fighting here. Because for me, this is my worst nightmare. I'll talk about it in another show. But ever since I was a kid, I never thought this would happen. This is my worst nightmare, to be living through this insanity.
It's true. He tells me about it all the time.
See these wrinkles? I didn't have any wrinkles 2 years ago.
You can't see my wrinkles, but they are there.
Oh my God. So thank you. We're going to wrap up here tonight, but thank you so much for calling in.
47 minutes over this schedule.
But it's been a great night.
Well,
it has
yes,
been.
Thank you both for letting me just to put that out there and my reason why.
Well, thank you, and keep your heart and your mind open, and keep searching, man, because it's a big world out there.
Yeah,
and,
to the
God
other
bless
people
you.
still in the queue, please call back
Sorry.
another night. It's it's just we're already almost an hour over our regular time, but we appreciate everyone and calling in and participating tonight. And as we wrap up, if you can support our work here, keep us going, you can go to freedomreporters.com to donate or subscribe over on Rumble. Please, on Rumble, to get us off YouTube so we get as many people there as possible. And with that, I'm going to throw it over to Brendan to wrap things up tonight.
Well, it's been a crazy week here, and we've had lots of interesting conversations around a number of different things. And I want to say thank you to everybody who has taken the time to call in and present ideas and different topics. We'll do it again tomorrow night, so we'll be back tomorrow. And with that being said, I'm your co-host, Brendan Kennedy. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
And I'm Rick Walker with the Maverick News Channel. We are the Freedom Reporters. Catch y'all back here again tomorrow night. Same bat time, same bat station. Catch you on the flip side. Thank you, everyone.